Chapter 4230. The words that came out of her mouth were a very sincere request. Cousin, can you let Shangyun go first? Arbor looked down at the woman who was on the verge of death from his strangling, and a cold glint flashed across his eyes. This ignorant woman only has herself to blame. Arbor lifted his leg and kicked her butt, causing Long Shangyun to roll down from the roof. Crackle, 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 crackle. A string of bricks and tiles flew up, and dust flew everywhere. On the other side, Long Huan's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. He probably did not expect the young crown prince consort to kick his sister, Long Shangyun, at the last moment. Long Shangyun had probably never been so unlucky in her life. After being kicked down from the roof by Arbor, Long Shangyun fell heavily on the ground and felt that she had lost all her face in front of others. A searing pain came from his neck. Long Shangyun was on the verge of exploding. She wanted to jump out immediately and tear apart the woman who dared to treat her like this. But the strange thing was that no matter how hard she struggled on the ground, she could not break free from the ground. Long Huan floated to the ground and quickly walked to Long Shangyun and bent down to help her up. Long Shangyun only felt dizzy, and she couldn't muster up any strength in her body. Long Huan quickly realized that something was wrong with Long Shangyun and quickly helped her up. He asked in a low voice, "Shangyun, how do you feel?" "I can't stand," Long Shangyun said through gritted teeth. Her angry eyes wanted to glare in Arbor's direction. Unfortunately, Xiaomu was currently standing on the eaves with Crown Prince Mo, looking down at them from above. Long Shangyun was weak and could not even lift her head. Naturally, she could not glare at them. Arbor looked coldly at the siblings and held the round jade pendant with the miniature of his mother's life lantern. "What is the purpose of this trip?" Hearing her cold voice, Long Huan could not help but feel nervous for a moment. Long Huan took a deep breath and tried to speak in a gentle tone. "Cousin, you have misunderstood us. It's fine if you don't want to talk. See him out." Long Huan's eyes widened slightly. His expression was as if his mouth had been stuffed with a duck egg, filled with curiosity and confusion. He felt that his cousin's thoughts were too jumpy. He could hardly understand her speech patterns. This cousin of his seemed to dislike the two of them, which could be seen from her cold eyes. "Wait. Stay up late," and the others were about to chase them away again. Long Huan couldn't help but take a deep breath. "Cousin, can we talk calmly?" Arbor sneered. "Talk? What right do you have to negotiate with me? The miniature of my mother's life lantern? What would you have done if I hadn't come to see you? Crush it." Long Huan's expression changed slightly. He quickly shook his head and said, "No, no way." The little girl's cold gaze fell on his face, her eyes revealing only 3 words. "I don't believe you." Long Huan felt like he had shot himself in the foot. He had been too rash just now. Now that the knot had been planted, it would be difficult to untie it. "Cousin, can you listen to me for a moment?" Long Huan asked Xiaomu sincerely as he supported Long Shangyun. "Purpose?" Arbor asked relentlessly. "I really don't have a purpose." Under her intense gaze, Long Huan took a deep breath. Chapter 4231. Arbor stared at him coldly, clearly not listening to a single word he said. "Send them away. There is no need to meet them in the future." Arbor turned to look at Emolien. The latter nodded and took her hand. "Cousin." Arbor looked at Long Hua coldly. "I am not close to you." Long Yi's heart turned cold. He knew that this time, he had seriously offended this unpredictable cousin of his. "Grandmother's time is almost up. I hope to see you and your cousin one last time." Mu Xingchen, who had been standing behind Arbor without making a sound, blinked. "Why didn't you say anything before?" Long Yin took a deep breath. "I planned to go with my cousin and cousin." Seeing the little crown princess's cold gaze, Long Hua changed his words with difficulty. "And the crown princess? Let's sit down as a family and talk about this. I didn't think that things would turn out like this. Crown princess, please forgive her." Long Hua bowed. "It was my sister's fault for being rude. The crown princess has already taught her a lesson. Can you remove the drug in her body first?" Even now, Long Shangyun couldn't move or stand up. If Long Huan still didn't realize that the young crown prince consort had done something in secret, then he really was a fool. Arbor looked at him expressionlessly. After a while he said, Do you think that everyone in the world is a fool except for you? Longhua's heart tightened. Why does the crown princess say that? I have not seen you for more than 10 years. You can threaten me with the miniature of my mother's life lantern. Are you worthy of my trust? My elder brother and I have been around for so many years, but you have never thought of us. I really think it's funny. With your intelligence, can you only think of such a lousy excuse? Is it really so important that my elder brother and I can let the dying old lady see her one last time? Arbor suddenly laughed loudly, his laughter filled with endless coldness. Long Chuyen, do you still remember what she looks like? You don't even remember Long Chuyen. So why are you looking at me with such a hypocritical expression and saying that you missed me? Jojo Mu Xingchen looked at his sister sadly. Emo Lien suppressed her anger and held Arbor's small hand to comfort him. You're disgusting, Arbor said coldly. Her eyes were as bright as diamonds, as if they could clearly illuminate the darkest and ugliest side of a person's heart. Long Qian was speechless. Thinking of the true purpose of this trip, he could only remain silent. Crown Princess, I know you have a grudge against the Dragon Clan. Don't think too highly of yourself. Arbor's voice interrupted him. The Dragon Clan is just a stranger to me. I don't have any resentment or anger towards you. Long Qian stilled. Arbor said coldly, do you suddenly go crazy and get angry at strangers when you're walking on the streets? Strangers? Strangers? A trace of anger rose in Long Qian's heart. From beginning to end, the girl had tried her best to distance herself from the Dragon Clan. While he felt helpless, he was also slightly angry. He had already humbly pleaded for leniency, but the other party's stubborn look really made him feel helpless. You're too wary of us. Long Qian could only say this dryly. Xiao Mu responded with an indifferent glance before turning around to leave with Emo Lien in tow. Chapter 4232. Cough 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 cough. Long Shengyun heaved a sigh of relief. Only then did she realize that she could move. Anger flashed in her eyes as she said indignantly, Brother Shi, shut up. Impatience flashed across Long Qian's eyes. Seeing that Ao Yi and the others were about to chase them away again, Long Qian raised his hand and took out a letter. There's another important matter on this trip. It's about the plan to fight against Tianyun together. We need to meet His Majesty to discuss it. Ao Yi's section break. Emo Lien raised his hand to wipe Jojo's wet hair. He sat beside her and said in a low voice, They'll meet father tomorrow. Arbor held the round jade pendant in her hand and kept turning it over and over. She looked a little tired. Don't think too much. Emo Lien hugged her and stroked her dry hair. He rubbed her little face. Father will definitely summon us tomorrow. We'll talk about it then. Arbor's lips curled into a cold smile. Jojo. Emo Lien held her little face and looked at her seriously. Don't be angry because of others. It's not worth it. Don't care what their motives are. We'll deal with whatever comes our way. There's always a way. Okay. Arbor looked at him listlessly. Annoying. Emo Lien couldn't help but laugh. He carried her to the bed. No. He pushed her down and smiled. I'll always have my husband. Arbor's dark eyes looked at him, and then at him. She suddenly pulled the cup over her head. Sleep. The next day, Arbor only opened her eyes when the sun was high in the sky. She sat up and looked expressionlessly at the man who was sitting by the bed and looking at her with a smile. Morning, Jojo. How was it early? Wasn't it almost noon? Emo Lien picked her up and pinched her weak little arm. Jojo, are you tired? Xiaomu grumpily cast him a sidelong glance. But when she saw the latter's small, sparkling phoenix eyes, she huffed in a huff. Let's get something to eat before we go. Where to? Father is entertaining the Wangchuan Dragon Clan in the Imperial Garden and has invited us over. Oh, King Zheng and his wife are also here. Emo Lien was diligently wiping his wife's face. When Arbor heard this, he quickly grabbed his hand. What are they doing here? Mother's body has almost recovered. Logically speaking, it's time to meet the two of them. Previously, the great emperor had used the excuse that the empress needed to recuperate to reject King Zheng's 2 requests for an audience. It seemed that this had caused King Zheng to feel anxious. Arbor shook his head. I don't want to live a good life. Who knew what was going on in his head all day long? Mother's personality was very straightforward. If King Zheng hadn't been so scheming in front of her, she believed that mother wouldn't have given him the cold shoulder for so many days. Although Princess Consort Zheng's looks were ordinary, she was also a diligent and thrifty person. Just look at how Princess Consort Zheng's birthday last time angered her. She truly had 8 lifetimes of bad luck to have such a husband. Don't mind them. Emolien pursed his lips and pulled the little stoic to the side to eat. We'll go over after we're full. Who the hell knew if there would be a ruckus there? After all, King Zheng and the Long siblings would be at the banquet later. They didn't look like they would be content with their lot. Arbor deeply agreed. Seeing that her husband had made the arrangements, she sat down with him. When the great emperor's personal eunuch came over to invite them, he happened to see the sumptuous meal in front of the young couple. His mouth couldn't help but twitch. Chapter 42-33. Just how much did His Highness distrust His Majesty? Was he afraid that his wife wouldn't be fed enough, and would feed her first before attending the banquet? This little eunuch had been sneaking peeks at the stoic-faced little crown princess the entire way here, as if he was looking at a weirdo. The latter was completely unaware, and obediently sat next to Prince Mo, poking the little treasure beast on her lap in boredom. The little treasure beast's eyes revealed a trace of bright sadness, and a pitiful expression hung on its lifeless furry face. After the little girl poked it continuously a dozen times, it looked like it was on the brink of death. With a conflicted furry face, it spat out a pill with a pu sound. The little crown princess picked up the pill and glanced at it, before silently putting it in her pocket. She sighed and said, I feed it so many medicinal ingredients every day, but it only spat out a few pills. The spirit root tempering pill that little treasure spat out was pretty good. If it spat out more, it would definitely be good for the children of the Purple Forest Guard. However, this little imp was also very clever now. It ate more than it spat out. Sometimes, when she poked it a dozen times, it would just lie there motionlessly like a dead pig. It would occasionally spit out a pill, which seemed like it was already giving her a lot of face. Strange. This fellow seemed to understand her a little, and wasn't afraid of her poking at all now. It seemed like it firmly believed that the little Master Silver was a paper tiger, and didn't pose any threat to it at all. Arbor was a bit indignant. Where was her dignity? Jojo, stop poking it. Emolien helplessly reached out to grab the little fellow's small hand and kissed it. Actually, this little treasure beast was also quite pitiful. She saw it looking up at the sky all day long with a bright and sorrowful expression. After looking at it for a long time, she suddenly felt that the expression on that furry face was also quite rich. Spit out another pill. You spat out 5 pills yesterday. Why are there only 4 today? It's getting less and less every day. If you spit out another pill, I won't poke you anymore. Emolien. Your Highness the Crown Princess has arrived. A eunuch's soft voice came from the garden path leading to the pavilion. The great emperor secretly rolled his eyes and looked out of the garden. These 2 brats really put on airs. They actually dared to make their father wait. Looking up, he indeed saw his good son holding the young crown prince consort's small hand as they slowly walked over. The handsome man and beautiful woman's clothes fluttered in the wind. It was truly an eyesore to look at. Wuxia smiled happily and said, Xiaoma Chow Chow, come and sit beside mother. There was a round table in the flower pavilion. The great emperor and his wife naturally sat close to each other. There were 2 empty seats beside the empress, which were naturally reserved for the crown prince and his wife. Mo Shikong sat with his wife, Shi Yongyan, across the 2 empty seats. His face didn't look too good. Arbor was led to the table by Prince Mo. He glanced around and saw Long Huan and Long Shangyun sitting beside the emperor. Long Huan hurriedly pulled Long Shangyun up and bowed. Greetings to the crown prince and crown princess. Long Shangyun puffed up her cheeks and reluctantly stood up with her brother. She cupped her hands towards Qiao Mu and Qiao Mu, but when her eyes, which were darting around, landed on Emolien, she suddenly paused. It was as if her soul had been hooked, and she stared at him without letting go. Brother, Long Shangyun's eyes were filled with surprise. Last night, when she saw him in a hurry, she thought she was seeing things. How could the person in front of her? Long Huan hurriedly pulled his sister. Long Shangyun regained her senses. Chapter 42-34. By Wuxia looked at Long Shangyun with interest. He pulled Arbor to sit beside her, but his gaze was fixed on Long Shangyun. He smiled warmly and said, "Miss Long, have you met the Crown Prince before?" Long Shangyun hurriedly sized up the Crown Prince, then lowered her eyes and shook her head cautiously. No. Bai Wuxia looked at Long Shangyun curiously. The meaning in this Miss Long's eyes was not what she meant. This younger sister does not know etiquette. I hope the Empress will not blame her. Long Huan smiled and smoothed things over, changing the topic. Yesterday, there was a small misunderstanding between us two siblings and the Crown Princess. It was not very pleasant. I hope the Crown Prince and the Crown Princess can forgive us. Today, I have prepared a small gift as an apology. I hope the Crown Princess will do me the honor. Long Huan had obviously checked out the little Crown Princess's background and sincerely wanted to mend their relationship. So when they met today, she immediately presented the gift. Xiao Mu cast a sidelong glance at the maidservant who walked up to her and bowed slightly in salute, while holding a large embroidered gift box. She glanced at Long Huan noncommittally. Seeing this, the two dragon clansmen sitting respectfully beside her hurriedly said with a smile, "This is a golden lotus from my Sea of Forgetfulness, the Pond Lotus Sage Realm. After consuming it, an ordinary person's lifespan will be extended by 200 years. For cultivators below the God Realm, their cultivation will increase by 1 level. For cultivators above the God Realm, their cultivation will also increase by half a level." When this was said, even Mo Lusheng and Bai Wuxia could not help but look towards the box. The servant girl was a smart person. She knew the meaning of the song. Seeing this, she opened the box and placed one of the golden lotuses in front of everyone. That golden lotus was only slightly longer than an adult woman's palm. The petals contracted and gathered together, the small flower body emitting bits of golden light. It was very eye-catching. Bai Wuxia sighed. I've long heard of the great name of the Lotus Sage Realm in the Pool of Forgetfulness. The products inside are truly eye-opening. Long Shangyun immediately became somewhat arrogant. She raised her head and laughed. The Pond Lotus Sacred Land is the largest sacred land within the River of Forgetfulness. Not only is it famous in the sea region, I believe it is also very famous in the 3 prefectures. Cousin, do you like it? Long she asked with a smile. The little stoic obediently sat next to the Crown Prince without making a sound. She was just like a little lump of wood, not even the slightest change in her expression. Everyone was speechless. What's going on? Suddenly, there was a feeling of not being able to continue the conversation. Could it be an illusion? Queen Bai chuckled. Jojo doesn't seem interested. Why don't you take back such an expensive gift, young Master Long? Long Huan's smile froze on his face. The maidservant held the brocade box with the lid open. She looked at her master, then looked at the little Crown Princess, and continued to stand there awkwardly. Empress, you must be joking. Long Huan chuckled awkwardly and looked at the little Crown Princess. How can I take back a gift that has been given out? If the Crown Princess isn't willing to accept it, then this one can only have someone throw it away. Everyone! Exclamation point. Tycoon! Please accept our eyeballs. The little Crown Princess expressionlessly looked at Long Huan and continued to remain silent. Long Huan knitted his brows and sent a meaningful glance to the maidservant. The maidservant knowingly raised her hand and tossed the box up, even specially tossing it towards the little Crown Prince under everyone's attentive gazes. They watched as that golden lotus flew out of the box and slowly fell to the ground. Roar! The treasured beast that had been playing dead and not moving the entire time finally moved. Chapter 42-35. Everyone stared blankly at the round little beast that suddenly rushed out. That's right, it was a furry round little beast that was emitting 5 types of faint light from its body. It jumped to the ground and directly held the golden lotus in its mouth, chewing and swallowing it in a few bites. Everyone, could it be that they were still in a dream? Were their eyes playing tricks on them just now? What kind of beast was that? It seemed to have swallowed the golden lotus. Yes, their eyes must be playing tricks on them. Ah! Long Shangyun stood up abruptly, her eyes almost popping out of their sockets. You! The moment she stood up and raised her head, everyone saw clearly that there were still 5 shallow finger marks on her neck, as if someone had pinched it out. At this moment, it had not completely faded away. Long Shungyun's eyes were filled with shock. She suddenly turned around and glared at Arbor. "This is your beast?" Little Crown Princess looked at her expressionlessly and frowned. She waved at Xiao Bao, who was lying on the ground and pretending to be dead, and reprimanded, "Come back." Xiao Bao immediately scampered over and jumped onto her knees. Little Crown Princess used her hand to smooth out the messy hair on Xiao Bao's head and said coldly and casually, "Sorry. My little beast likes to pick up the trash on the ground to eat. I've made a fool of myself. Everyone can we complain in our hearts? Emperor and Empress. Tang Yuan's wife has been led astray by little Tang Yuan. Look at her calm expression and calm expression. Why does she look so serious when she spouts nonsense? Ridiculous." Long Shungyun was furious. This is the golden lotus produced in the pond lotus sacred realm. How can it be done? She really could not spit out the word trash. Arbor blinked and said with a puzzled expression, "If it's not trash, why did you throw it on the ground? My Zhenzhen always likes to pick up the trash on the ground to eat. This habit can't be changed no matter what. You deserve to be beaten. You're not obedient." As she spoke, her delicate little face tightened as she raised her hand and patted little Treasure's head. After eating the golden lotus, our dear Zhenzhen continued to lie on Xiaomu's lap and play dead, as if it hadn't jumped down to eat the golden lotus at all. It completely ignored the surrounding glares that were as sharp as swords. Prince Emo coughed lightly and handed a cup of warm tea to his wife. "Will Zhenzhen get a stomachache?" Arbor lowered his head and looked at little Treasure, who was pretending to be dead. He pulled its fur and put the tea beside its mouth, feeding it a few mouthfuls. "Don't worry. Give it a bottle of nutrient solution later." Everyone was speechless as they looked at the Crown Prince and his wife. They always felt that this matter had become very funny. A golden lotus that was hard to find and could increase a cultivator's cultivation realm. After consuming it was swallowed by an unknown little beast like trash. After that, the Crown Prince and his wife even disliked it, and said that the little beast might have a stomachache after eating it. Wasn't this funny? Long Shungyun was so angry that her entire body was trembling. She raised a trembling finger and pointed at Arbor. Her lips kept trembling. You actually?" In her anger, Long Shungyun felt that she could no longer speak a complete sentence. Arbor looked at her coldly. "Looking for trouble?" No, I'm not looking for trouble." Long Qian hurriedly reached out and pulled his sister's sleeve, forcefully pulling the frozen Long Shungyun back to her seat. Sighing weakly, Long Qian looked at the little Crown Princess with a complicated gaze. Chapter 42-36. This cousin's hostility was very strong. She wasn't willing to accept his present, which meant that she definitely didn't want to reconcile with them at all. What was he supposed to do now? The more Long Huan thought about it, the more his head hurt. His gaze couldn't help but land on the little Crown Princess's expressionless face again. The little stoic was truly extremely difficult to deal with. Arbor noticed his gaze and looked away after an indifferent glance. He couldn't help but snicker in his mind. These siblings truly had a good idea. Did they think that Sir Jojo would accept anyone's present? Heh. Little Treasure's small head drooped listlessly as it lay on the little stoic's legs, pretending to be about to die. Long Huan, who originally wanted to worm his way into being friends with Arbor, suddenly felt his words stuck in his throat when he saw his precious beast's appearance. What should he say? Should he say, "Crown Princess, your little beast ate our family's golden lotus, so does that count as you accepting our Long clan's present?" But the little beast was drooping half dead, and it even had to wash its stomach with nutrient fluid. When it got home, it felt like it had eaten a mouthful of the golden lotus. If by any chance this weak little beast died later on, would the Crown Princess blame their Long family for this? After all, they were the ones who threw trash everywhere, which led to the little beast accidentally ingesting trash and dying. Everyone glanced sympathetically at the conflicted young Master Long, and silently lit a candle for him in their hearts. They could tell that this young Crown Prince Consort and the people of the Long family were like sworn enemies. The Crown Prince Consort disliked the people of the Long family very much. After Long Shangyun angrily sat down, her eyes glanced at Arbor from time to time, fiercely stabbing her with her eyes. She grew up in Forget River, and had lived like a princess since she was young. She had never suffered any hardships, let alone the humiliation yesterday. Her aunt's daughter was too unruly, and didn't have the slightest sense of family values. It truly made people hate her to the core. Arbor took the clean teacup from the Crown Prince, and took a sip. Young Master Long, if your sister doesn't want those eyes anymore, then feel free to continue glaring at me. Long Huan's face was immediately filled with embarrassment. He turned around, and saw Long Shangyun staring at him with her eyes wide open, and her face full of grievance. Crown Princess Shangyun is your cousin. Long Huan sighed. Do you have to treat her like this? Spoiled, domineering, and ignorant. Arbor said coldly. If I had such an arrogant and ignorant younger brother or sister, I would beat them until their parents couldn't recognize them. Embarrassing. Arbor's words were cold. He looked at Long Huan with a mocking gaze. If you don't have a good upbringing, don't bring him out to show off. You won't tarnish your family's name. Long Huan's face alternated between green and white. He suddenly felt embarrassed. The little Crown Princess's tongue was too sharp. Once she opened her mouth to rebuke him, he would start doubting his life. Ha ha ha. Emo Liusheng's awkward laughter was completely out of place with the atmosphere here. The White Empress covered her mouth and laughed. She gently said, pass on the food. Everyone should be hungry. Yes. The young eunuch at the side immediately ran out. Not long after, the dishes flowed in from outside the pavilion. After the Emperor and Empress picked up their chopsticks, everyone looked at each other awkwardly, and began to eat. The little Crown Princess was clearly full, but seeing that the dishes were plentiful, she reluctantly started eating. Chapter 42-37. Delicacies naturally couldn't be let down. The little stoic felt that even if she was full, she could still stuff a few more pieces of white jade tofu, and the like down her stomach. Kaixio jogged over with a set of dazzling gold tableware in her hands. The little Crown Princess was expressionless, as she picked up some food from the nearby bowls, and placed it in that dazzling gold bowl. Kaixio took the gold bowl, picked up little treasure, and walked to a small table to feed it. Everyone. The nouveau riche little Crown Princess was using such a large dazzling gold bowl. To feed the little beast, this was too extravagant. A cough, cough, cough. One of the Dragon Clan members respectfully seated below coughed dryly, and raised his cup. Your Majesty, what do you think of the letter this humble one presented yesterday? Oh, Sir Longmao's plan to eradicate heavenly fate is indeed very detailed. However, we feel that there are still quite a few obstacles when it comes to concrete implementation. First of all, you mentioned uniting the 3 provinces, but you didn't specify who will be the vanguard and who will be the commander-in-chief. Emo Lushing said aloofly. He skimmed through the plan presented by the Dragon Clan yesterday, before having someone clean it up and toss it aside. It was all talk and no practical targeting plan. It only talked about uniting all the forces that could be united. What about the direction? What should be done first and what should be done later? There was nothing. Could it be that after the 3 provinces gathered, everyone would be like a plate of loose sand, and everyone would first have a great battle royale? Your Majesty is right. That middle-aged man called Long Mao nodded with a smile and said, the plan letter we presented to Your Majesty yesterday actually didn't go into too much detail. The concrete implementation method still needs to be discussed in detail, with Your Majesty face to face. Right now, the first step of our plan is for Wangchuan Dragon Clan, Divine Province Mo Clan, Underworld Province Ming Clan, and Song Province Rome Clan to each select a group of elites, gather them, and head to Wangchuan's training ground first. We will pool our resources, medicine, and everything. We are bound to turn this group of elites into experts of the God realm and above. In the future, we will use their full strength to eradicate heavenly fate forces everywhere. This is the first step. As for the second step, we will discuss it in detail after we establish the Heaven Exterminating Battle Team. Long Mao was a guest elder in the Dragon Clan. Although his strength was not great, it was said that he was very quick-witted. Just by looking at the way he spoke, it was actually very difficult to tell that he was someone who had received almost no education since he was young. He had not even attended a private school for a few days. The Heaven Exterminating Battle Group? Arbor couldn't help but twitch the corner of his mouth. He subconsciously looked up at the sunny sky outside the pavilion. What did this have to do with the heavenly Tao? Why did he want to destroy the heavens? That's not a good name. The little crown princess shook her head. She held a spoon in her hand with an expressionless and obedient look. Everyone couldn't help but look at each other speechlessly. Crown Prince Consort, isn't your focus a bit too different from other people's? Now is not the time for you to express your opinion on the name, but your opinion on the plan. Long Mao looked at the young crown princess with a smile and asked with a gentle smile, "What do you think, Miss Biao? Kill the Celestial Fate Battle Group." Everyone. For some reason, they didn't want to talk to the crown princess. This sudden emotion suddenly became so intense. Emo Yen suppressed the smile at the corner of his mouth. He felt that he must support his wife unconditionally. Chapter 4238. We feel that this name is very good. Prince Emo had an unperturbed expression, insisting on saying this name properly. Look, kill Heavenly Fortune, kill Heavenly Fortune. It's easy to understand and catchy. It's much better than destroying the heavens. What we want to destroy is Heavenly Fortune, not the heavens. It won't be good if Heavenly Law misunderstands. Everyone. They no longer had any words to describe this couple. While the crown prince explained with a serious expression, the little crown princess obediently sat next to him and nodded repeatedly. She nodded when the crown prince said one sentence. She nodded again when he said two sentences. It was as if the crown prince was her mouthpiece, and everything he said would go straight to her heart. Everyone expressed their helplessness. How could this heavenly law be so bored as to misunderstand the names they came up with? Emo Lushing simply didn't dare to drink water, because he was afraid that he would spit it out in front of everyone. He was a fucking great emperor. If he spat out water in front of everyone, would he still care about his handsome face? On the other hand, the White Empress was very self-restrained. She smiled gently as usual and praised. Jojo came up with quite a good name. Arbor nodded again. None of the beasts dislike the names I come up with. The five-colored treasure beast peeked out a lifeless face from the golden ocean bowl and silently swallowed its tears. It really didn't know why its little master came up with the name Jinjin. At that time, its master gave it 3 choices, which seemed to be very democratic. 5 flowers, colorful, Jinjin. See, there seemed to be a lot of choices, right? In fact, none of the names could be used while the 5-colored treasure beast hesitated with tears in its eyes. The little master thought it was fond of the last name Jinjin, and then gave it the final word. There was no more after that. Jinjin, do you like this name? But facing you plus an emotionless face. Not speaking means you like it. Master, I really have a talent for naming. The little beasts all cast sympathetic gazes at the treasure beast. Brother, we've all experienced what you've experienced before, self-righteous. Long Shangyun, who was sitting on the side with a cold face and listening for a long time, couldn't help but tightly grip the wine cup in her hand and sneered. The little stoic immediately turned around to glare at her. Seeing this, Long Mao hurriedly tried to smooth things over. Everyone, the matter of the battle team's name isn't the most important. These are all small matters. We can slowly discuss them in the future. Other than wanting to meet the eldest Mrs. son and daughter, our young master is here to discuss with His Majesty about the selection of elites for the battle group. Emo Lushing raised his eyebrows. The Forgotten River Dragon clan plans to gather the elites of the 3 states and head to the Forgotten River training grounds. Not bad. The reason why we chose the River of Forgetfulness is because the ocean is vast. We chose Lisha Island, the largest island near the Pool Lotus Sacred Land. Long Mao smiled and said, "This island is close to the sacred domain. It's a natural sacred domain. I'm sure it will be of great benefit to everyone's strength." Emo Lushing twirled the cup at his fingertips. The Forgotten River Dragon clan is really generous. They're offering resources and environment. Could it be that they want to be the leader of the Celestial Fate Legion? Everyone was speechless. Since the great emperor had already started yelling kill the Heavenly Fate battle group. It meant that the name of the battle group had already been decided. Long Mao smiled faintly and shook his head. Your Majesty misunderstands. Just as Your Majesty said, no one will be convinced of being the leader of the Heavenly Fate Legion. Chapter 4239. It's even more impossible for us, the dragon family of Forgotten River, to step forward and be the leader, Long Qian said with a humble smile. Fortunately, the underworld and Song continents have already unified their statements and appointed a candidate. If there are no problems with the emperor, then our leader is decided. Who? Emo Lucian raised his brows without batting an eyelid. The Song continent's emperor had already ascended to heaven. He didn't seem to have heard that the brat who ascended the throne had any relationship with the old bastard from the underworld continent. Emolian suddenly lowered his head and glanced at Sir Jojo beside him. Sensing his gaze, the latter looked up blankly and returned the crown prince's gaze. Prince Emo, looking at his Jojo's blank expression, she definitely didn't expect someone to be thinking about her. The candidate appointed by both the Song continent and the underworld continent is cousin Jojo. This time, it was the Divine Prefecture's emperor's turn to look puzzled. He glanced at his expressionless daughter-in-law. Arbor also glanced at the emperor and frowned slightly. He glanced at Long Qian, who was looking at him with a smile. Young Master Long is indeed trying to get me to go to Forgotten River, Arbor said coldly. Long Qian paused and hurriedly explained. That's not the case. Why would I joke about such an important matter? Cousin is indeed the candidate appointed by both the underworld and Song continents. You have to know that when the time comes, tens of thousands, or even hundreds of thousands of elite cultivators will gather from the 3 continents. If they hand it over to a suspicious person, neither side will be at ease. And Cousin Arbor rolled his eyes. Not interested. Who had the time to train with them on that lousy island? Long Qian was a little anxious now. Back when they were discussing with the underworld and Song continents, they couldn't decide on a leader after a long discussion. Until the Song continent suggested that the little crown princess be the leader, and the underworld continent readily agreed. Although he did not know what was going on, Long Huan was very sure that the young crown princess had no problems in the Song prefecture and the underworld prefecture. Naturally, there would be no problems in the divine land. Long Shangyun's eyes widened when she heard the young crown princess rejection. Since we're discussing the matter of rebelling against the heavenly fate together, as a citizen of the 3 continents, shouldn't you support us unconditionally? How can you so willfully reject us? Do you have any sense of responsibility? No. Arbor put down the spoon in his hand and looked at the emperor expressionlessly. Father, if you're here to discuss this matter, then I refuse. I'll take my leave first. Bai Wuxia couldn't help but want to laugh. He quickly held her little hand and said, Hey Jojo, you've only eaten 2 mouthfuls. Eat a little before you leave. All right, let's stop discussing. The dishes are getting cold. Let's eat first. Arbor rubbed his round belly. Looking at the table full of dishes, he couldn't eat anymore. Emolian scooped a bowl of fish soup for him. Drink some soup. We'll go out for a walk later to help with digestion. Bai Wuxia looked at his son in amusement. Emolution couldn't help but chuckle. Just now, the little eunuch secretly reported that the young couple had already eaten their fill in the Eastern Palace. They must think that their father didn't give them any food to eat. Thus, until the end of the meal, the young crown princess did not mention a single word about what had just happened. Long Huan was secretly anxious. He turned and stole a glance at Long Mao. The latter shook his head at him, indicating that he should not continue talking about this matter. Chapter 4240. It was very obvious that the crown princess was very wary of the Long clan. No matter what they did or said, the crown princess would associate it with deceiving her to go to the River of Forgetfulness. Or what is the Long clan's goal in the River of Forgetfulness? Long Mao couldn't help but sigh. He looked up at the silent little crown princess, sitting beside the crown prince, and planned to talk to the emperor about this. It was night. The moon was as deep as water, and the stars filled the sky. Arbor leaned against the window and looked up at the faint swaying figure in front of her. Child, is this my child? Child, don't think about revenge. Don't do anything. Don't think about anything. Live well and promise mother, okay? It was just like the letter she had seen in Long Chiyun's handwritten letter in the Land of Heritage. Long Chiyun's life lantern miniature did not leave behind any accusations of revenge or unwillingness. There were only some calm and serene statements. The place she could see in the life lantern miniature was the scenery of the Land of Heritage. She had named this place Chuyun Star. Long Chiyun's last days were spent in the Land of Inheritance. Arbor saw her carrying the infant in swaddling clothes and walking slowly in the Land of Heritage with a faint smile on her pale face. It was the first time Arbor saw a clear Long Chiyun at such a close distance. When the figure floated in front of her, she couldn't help but reach out, only to grab air. It was impossible to say that she wasn't disappointed. The little fellow expressionlessly put the figure back into the round jade pendant and said indifferently, "You really are an idiot. In this cannibalistic world, if you don't move forward, you'll be eaten until not even your bones are left. For the sake of the Dragon Clan, you didn't hesitate to break off relations with the Mu clan. In the end, you didn't end well on either side. Did anyone in the Dragon Clan say anything about you? When the Dragon Clan was ambushed in the River of Forgetfulness, did they come out to find you after recovering their vitality? Even after 3 to 5 years, did they come to find you? No, they didn't do anything. A married daughter is like spilled water. They've long forgotten about you." "Idiot," Arbor muttered softly, his little hand tightly gripping the round jade pendant. "Mother, I miss you. If you were still alive, you would have personally taught me martial arts and alchemy. What kind of fate did they have to miss each other for 2 lifetimes?" When Emolien pushed open the door and entered, she saw the shadow of the moon cast on Jojo. It made her look gloomy and gloomy. Under the moonlight, she looked dark and gloomy. "Why aren't the lights on?" He hastily walked up and picked up the little stoic. With a casual flick of his finger, he lit up all the candlesticks around them. The firelight illuminated the 2 people's faces. Sparks danced in the candlestick, and in an instant, it was as if the entire room was lit up. Emolien turned her little head over and looked at her seriously. "Don't let your imagination run wild, okay? With you like this, your husband can't do anything. I just want to keep an eye on you all day long." The little stoic's little face was wooden. Her eyelids rolled slightly as she cast him a dispirited glance. "Jojo, I heard that there are a lot of lotus flowers in that pond lotus sacred realm. Red, yellow, green, blue. There are all kinds of them you've seen before and haven't seen before." Arbor lifted his little face and looked at Emolien blankly. And then, "No matter what the Dragon Clan's goal is, we might as well follow their wishes and go to the River of Forgetfulness to refine the Pond Lotus Sacred Realm." Chapter 42-41. Arbor looked up at him curiously. "Your dad wants us to go?" Emolien nodded slightly. In reality, the trip to the River of Forgetfulness was imperative. Both of them were well aware that it all depended on how they went. "Do you think the incident on Leisha Island is reliable?" Arbor was silent for a moment before looking up at Emolien curiously. The matter of forming the Heavenly Fate Legion should be reliable. When Emolien read the words "kill the Heavenly Fate," she couldn't help but facepalm in exasperation. The Heavenly Fate's devastation in the coastal villages is much more severe than what we see here. Emolien carried the little stoic and walked to the side to sit down. Comparatively speaking, the situation in the River of Forgetfulness will be more tense. Isn't it suspicious that the Dragon Clan of Forgetfulness detained the state preceptor with ulterior motives? Emolien brushed away the hair by her cheek. Long Qian's explanation to Royal Father was that the state preceptor trespassed on their sacred land for some unknown reason and was subsequently arrested. They said that the entire matter had nothing to do with our divine province and was merely the state preceptor's personal grudge with the River of Forgetfulness. Then why did the state preceptor send a message saying that the Dragon Clan of Forgetfulness is using him to threaten me to go? This Long Qian's explanation is also correct. The state preceptor is recklessly fabricating nonsense. Arbor scoffed and nodded. Let's just assume that his explanation makes sense. Emolien rubbed her head with a smile. They probably discovered that using the state preceptor to threaten us is completely useless. They simply didn't expect that these two had always been used to acting recklessly and willfully. Why would they rush over to rescue the state preceptor because of his life and death? There's something wrong with their brains. Arbor pursed her lips in disdain and nudged her head against Prince Mo's chest. Let's go then. I've never been to the River of Forgetfulness, so I don't know what the place Mother grew up in is like. Emolian hugged her and lowered her head to look at her gently. Long Qian Yu's mother-in-law's remains to lure me in. It is said that the land of forgetfulness is the place where mother-in-law grew up. Traces of mother-in-law's growth can be seen everywhere. Mother-in-law also left behind many relics in the River of Forgetfulness. I've already promised him. He reached out to stroke his wife's head and said softly, I don't want you to have any regrets. Arbor's eyes flickered. He tilted his head and shook his sleeve. Okay. It wasn't like she was afraid of the Forgotten River Dragon clan. Just as JoJo's Lotus had said she would go, she would refine their precious Pond Lotus sacred realm, so that these people with evil intentions wouldn't even be able to find a place to cry. Emolian smiled as he nuzzled her jade-white forehead, asking softly, Xiao Xiao, if we refine the Pond Lotus sacred realm in the future, what star should we call it? JoJo's Lotus Star. The little stoic spoke seriously and wrapped her arms around his neck. Grow more colorful lotus flowers. When the time comes, we'll move in and live there for a while. Emolian couldn't resist laughing out loud and nodded repeatedly. MHM. Then we'll call it Xiao's Lotus Star. Sir Jojo's eyes brightened, and he nodded in approval. This couple was starting to yearn for the Pond Lotus Holy Land. In fact, they hadn't even taken any shape yet. But these two scoundrels had already claimed the Pond Lotus Holy Land as their own, and even gave it a name in advance. Everything was ready. All that was left was to take this trip. After the two finished their discussion, the little stoic took out a handful of spirit root tempering pills from her pocket. That golden lotus is quite effective. Just now, she poked little treasure a dozen times, and it spat out a handful. Chapter 42-42. Arbor stuffed these spirit root tempering pills into a bag and stuffed it into Emolien's hands. Give it to those less talented children of the Purple Forest Guard. It should be of help to them. These spirit root tempering pills could help them increase their aptitude. The difference in innate spirit roots could be said to be heaven and earth on the path of cultivation. Even if people with ordinary spirit roots cultivated diligently for several hundred years, they might not be able to surpass people with extraordinary aptitude. Although it made people feel deeply helpless, there was nothing they could do about it. Now these spirit root tempering pills could help cultivators with ordinary aptitude increase their aptitude. At the very least, it could make their future path of cultivation a little easier and simpler. Emolian nodded with a smile and put away the bag of spirit root tempering pills. Tomorrow I'll have Aoyi handle it. He hugged the little fellow and said softly, Those brats will definitely be very happy. On the morning of the next day, the two had just woken up in a sticky state, when Eunuch Chun ran in joyfully, with his flower-pinching fingers. Your Highness the Crown Prince, Crown Princess, His Majesty's reward has arrived. The little stoic was eating porridge with a spoon. Upon hearing this, she looked up and asked in bewilderment, What reward? Emolian placed a portion of pastry meat in front of his wife and said solemnly, His Majesty naturally has to reward us since he sent us on a diplomatic mission to Wangchuan. What a joke. If there was no reward, they could go as they pleased. It was such an arduous mission, and they had to wander the seas and spend their days on a deserted island. Not everyone could endure this kind of hardship. Arbor's eyes brightened, and he tossed his spoon aside and pulled Emolian up. Let's go and take a look. Emolian tugged at her small hand in amusement and picked up her small rice bowl. Have someone move a table outside. You can admire it while eating. Good idea. Perhaps if this darling is happy, I can eat 2 more bowls of porridge. Sir Jojo's eyes seemed to be sparkling. Prince Emo couldn't help but be overjoyed as he watched from the side. He knew that his wife was the happiest when she was counting the supplies. His father had done a good job today. He had sent someone to deliver gifts early in the morning, so that Jojo could eat more thus. Everyone saw that their master had the dining table moved out of the courtyard early in the morning, and accompanied his wife to eat a very sumptuous breakfast in the garden. Everyone in the Eastern Palace knew that the great emperor had sent someone to deliver the reward. The gifts flowed into the Eastern Palace like flowing water. Just the list of gifts alone took more than 2 hours. After the little crown princess finished her breakfast, she nibbled on some fruits and some pastries. When the list of gifts was finally finished, she was secretly speechless. Her eyes sparkled as she glanced at her husband beside her. She nodded repeatedly and said, "Your father is quite impressive." Of course, Mother opened Father's private storehouse and dug out a lot of good stuff for us. Prince Emo grinned and rubbed against his wife's body. "Jojo, I'll give you all of these. Are you happy?" Arbor nodded. "Don't worry. There must be a lot of things in the river of forgetfulness. When the time comes, your husband will secretly help you search for them," Prince Emo murmured in his wife's ear. Sir Jojo's little face became more energetic. Those who were originally very resistant to the idea of going to the river of forgetfulness were now inexplicably reduced by half. Jojo's lotus was right. Since they had a hidden agenda and were harboring evil intentions, Sir Jojo and her husband would go and rob their nests clean. The river of forgetfulness was vast and had abundant resources. Chapter 42-43. When Emo Lien saw that his wife was starting to get spirited, he hurriedly struck while the iron was hot. "Jojo, let's go, we'll go and pack up these goods. Look at our father, he's so rustic, he didn't even bring out a space ring. He even had to bring out a list of gifts to sing, putting on airs." If Emo Lushing heard this, he would definitely scold this rascal to death. What was a reward? Of course, everyone in and out of the court knew. That was a true reward. Xiqiao nodded in deep agreement. Then she stretched out her hand and made a gesture. Over 10 storage talismans suddenly floated up into the air and sorted everything in the courtyard. Then, all the things that were scattered all over the ground were stored away. Crown Princess. Li Yi suddenly appeared in front of the young Crown Princess with a leap. This fellow's little face was taut, and there was even a small square brocade box under her arm. When she saw the young Crown Princess looking at her, she respectfully extended her hand to present the brocade box to her. "Please take a look." Her Majesty the Empress said that the property inside should originally be handed over to Your Highness the Crown Prince. Since the Crown Princess is in charge now, it's the same to hand it over to you. The young Crown Princess took a look and saw that it was filled to the brim with house deeds and spirit coin cards. Her little hand trembled, and she almost dropped the things on the ground. When Emo Lien saw this, he hurriedly extended his hand to help her hold onto the brocade box. The young Crown Princess quickly patted her husband's chest, saying with a long sigh, "Mother really doesn't lack money. Wife, keep all of these well. They're all yours now." When the Crown Prince said this, he didn't see those palace maids and eunuchs in the courtyard looking at him with worried gazes. They were really worried for His Highness Ah. In front of the Crown Princess. Why did he hand everything over? They remembered that those court officials would more or less keep some private stash of money on their side as backup. His Highness the Crown Prince was too honest with his wife. "Husband, do you want to keep some for your use?" "No need, husband has money." The group of palace maids and eunuchs looked at each other and felt a trace of melancholy. Although he didn't know where this trace of melancholy came from, he still felt quite stifled. Every time they saw the way His Highness and the Crown Princess interacted, they always felt a little stifled. At this time, they still didn't understand that this was the feeling of a single dog being forced to swallow a mouthful of dog food and having nowhere to complain. Speaking of which, the Crown Prince and his wife didn't have much to prepare. In the past 2 days, the young Crown Princess had chosen a few of the more famous shops and estates in the capital from the estate the Empress had given her and toured them. The number of businesses in her hands was increasing. It seemed that she needed to train a manager to help her manage all the businesses. When the little Crown Princess returned, her face was full of melancholy. When Crown Prince saw that his wife was unhappy again, he quickly asked for the reason. He couldn't help but laugh. "Jojo, isn't it just finding a female manager? What's there to be worried about?" You forgot that there are many talents in all aspects in husband's hidden night pavilion. I'll find one for you. Crown Prince was a man of his word. In less than half a day, he had found a capable female manager for Arbor Songting. Arbor had a long talk with her, and was very satisfied with this shrewd middle-aged woman. In the future, with someone to help him filter out important information and grasp all the business trends, she would be able to relax a lot. After all, she still had to put most of her energy into cultivation. As for the various problems with the businesses, she could only pick the important ones to deal with. Chapter 42-44. After another 2 days, Long Qian could not hold it in any longer, and went to the emperor to persuade him. For example, Tianyin is in dire straits. We cannot waste any more time on singing and dancing. Another example was, the crown princess leads people around the capital every day. We should not waste too much energy on nonsense. We should focus on doing something practical. He rambled on until the emperor felt dizzy, and could not help but reach out to interrupt him. Young Master Long, what are you trying to say? Long Qian took a deep breath. If he could, he would pick up the inkstone beside him, and smack the emperor on the head. Why are you pretending to be confused? Your Majesty, let's not beat around the bush. The situation along the River of Forgetfulness is really bad. We should unite the 3 continents and fight against Tianyin together. This is not a joke. We have already delayed long enough. I wonder when the Crown Prince and the Crown Princess can set off with us? Oh, realization dawned on the Emperor's face as he nodded and said, We thought you had already discussed it with the Crown Prince and Crown Princess. Didn't you? Long Qian, why was this family so difficult to deal with? Long Huan pressed his throbbing head, and tried his best to suppress the anger in his belly. What was her relationship with the little Crown Princess? The Emperor would have to be blind to not see it. Their relationship was already like this, but the little Crown Princess would either roll her eyes, or ignore them expressionlessly whenever she saw them. What was the point of discussing? The Crown Prince had no integrity in front of his wife. How could they expect the Crown Prince to help them persuade the little Crown Princess? He might as well throw a sow into the sky. Young Master Long, you don't have to be so impatient, the Emperor said to him with a smile. These 2 days, the Empress sent over some of the properties that originally belonged to the couple. The Crown Princess has not been idle these days. She has been patrolling the properties. Patrolling the properties, when could she not do so? Did she, the Crown Princess, have to do everything herself? Long Yin took a deep breath. Your Majesty, I wonder if you can issue a decree for us to depart tomorrow? The great emperor looked at Long Qing with a troubled expression. Young Lord Long, it's not that I don't want to help you. It's just that my son and daughter-in-law both have their own opinions. If I issue an edict without asking for the reason, it is very likely that they will throw my edict and the eunuch out of the Eastern Palace. Long Qian was speechless. What use do I have for you? You are a fucking piece of trash. Why did this family of 4 look so hateful? Long Shi held back his anger and returned to the guest house. He continued to stay there patiently. 3 days later, the Eastern Palace finally sent someone to look for him. The one who sent the message was a young lady whose face was even more taut than the young Crown Prince consorts. She had a pretty appearance of 18 or 19 years of age, and was dressed in black tight-fitting clothes. She hugged her sword and said when she saw him, We're leaving in the afternoon. Prepare the sea supplies, food, clothing, and other necessities according to this list. It's all thanks to my master. Let's see who's the real deal. With that, she unsheathed her sword and sliced a stone table in the courtyard into 2 halves. Long Shengyun was sitting by the table. She jumped up and screamed in shock and anger. Her finger trembled as she pointed at the girl's departing figure. Long Yin was also so angry that he almost exploded. Thinking of the purpose of this trip, he forced himself to swallow his anger. Tomorrow, I'll catch up on 2 more chapters. Chapter 42-45. Fuck, if someone kept angering him like this along the way, would he die from anger? Long Qian could not help but deeply suspect this possibility. Long Shengyun suddenly stood up from the stone stool. and shouted in exasperation. Brother, are you going to allow her to do as she pleases? Look at what has become of her. She's just a mere servant girl, and she dares to look down on us? That's not a mere servant girl. Long Qian's eyes flashed. Her cultivation is above yours. She's a level 15 great spiritual master. Long Shangyun paused, her furious figure in a daze, and her pretty face contorted slightly. What was this? Even a little maid by his side had a higher cultivation than her, Long Shangyun. No wonder that woman was so arrogant, and did not look down on her brother and her. Long Shangyun took a deep breath, and could not hold back the anger in her heart. Brother, are you really going to do as they say? Her gaze landed on Long Qian. She saw that Long Qian was looking down at a list in his hand. Long Qian's expression was a little strange. As he looked at the list, his eyebrows could not help but twitch. What's written? Long Shangyun angrily walked to Long Qian's side, and glanced at the list in his hand. With one look, her nose almost became crooked from anger. 3 meals a day. How could the food be different within a week? In such a short time, brother, you have to go to the city and buy everything? Wasn't this cheating? Was this cheating? Naturally, this was not cheating. The worst part was that the little crown princess daily necessities, ingredients and so on were all designated shops for Long Qian to buy. Needless to say, these shops were definitely opened by the little crown princess herself. The prices were probably very good. Look at what's written on this list. The furnishings in the rooms in the ship, the golden silk curtains used for the beds, the fine satin blankets. Everything has to be according to their requirements and specifications. Long Shangyun was so angry that she wanted to crush the list in her hand. Long Qian's face darkened. He hurriedly snatched the list from her hand and took a deep breath. Aohai. Yes. A gray-robed man in his early 30s suddenly appeared beside Long Huan. What orders do you have, young master? Take some people with you, and buy all the items on this list within 2 hours. Let's go. Yes, young master. The man cupped his fists and bowed. He immediately took the list in his hand, and waved his hand to lead a group of people out to buy. Long Shangyun glared angrily at her brother. Brother, why are you indulging her like this? Long Huan immediately looked back at her in annoyance. What idea do you have? The most important thing right now is to take them with us as soon as possible, Long Yun said in a low voice. Don't cause any more trouble. Long Shangyun's beautiful face was extremely gloomy. She clenched her fists so hard that her knuckles cracked. That damn Qiaomu. One day, she would make this woman pay the corresponding price for her unruly behavior. Shangyun. Long Huan gave her a warning look and said in a low voice, Don't add any more trouble to the family. If it wasn't for you, why would the crown princess dislike us so much? Long Huan warned again. Did you hear what I said? Don't cause any more trouble. Long Shangyun bit her lips and nodded unwillingly. I understand, brother. Chapter 42-46. Gold and red curtains were drawn, and a fragrant mist filled the air. Mu Rochuan bowed as she walked into the room. Mother, may I know why you summoned me? Mu Qingya was wrapped in a moon-white robe, and leaned against the edge of the brocade couch. Mu Qingya frowned slightly when she saw her daughter's unsmiling face. Her gaze fell on the centipede-like scar on the left side of her face, and she immediately looked away. Rochuan, pack your things and get ready to leave, Mu Qingya said casually. Mu Rochuan was startled. Mother, where do you plan to send me? Mu Qingya smiled and said, My child, you're almost fully recovered. I can't keep you by my side all day and watch you do nothing. Others will gossip about it. Mother, feel free to tell your daughter what to do, Mu Rochuan said indifferently. Mu Qingya nodded with a smile. Rochuan, Mother wants you to go to the Forgetful River and do something for Mother. Mu Rochuan looked up at the elegant woman in front of her. Mother, please tell me. Mu Qingya couldn't help but nod in satisfaction when she saw that Mu Rochuan's attitude was rather respectful. She raised her hand and took out a letter that she had already written and handed it to Mu Rochuan. Just do as the letter says. Mu Rochuan took the letter, lowered her head, and silently read through it. Then, she looked up at Mu Qingya in surprise. Mother, you want me to capture her? Mu Qingya nodded. Mother has already thought of a few ways for you. You just have to act according to the circumstances. Mu Rochuan couldn't help but smile bitterly. Mother, I'm afraid this matter won't go as you wish. I wasn't even her match when I was at the peak of my cultivation, let alone now. Rochuan, you have too little confidence in yourself. Mu Qingya glanced at her indifferently. Mu Rochuan didn't speak for a long time. Mu Qingya sighed, stood up, and slowly walked to her side. Seeing that she was silent with her head lowered, Mu Qingya took her hand and said softly, Rochuan, do you know what your biggest weakness is right now? You lack confidence. Mu Qingya sighed. If you don't have confidence, you're no different from a salted fish. Mu Qingya raised her hand and brushed a strand of her daughter's hair behind her head. She said softly, Rochuan, the most important thing for you to do now is to build confidence. You must know that there are no absolutes in this world. You were unable to deal with her in the past, but that does not mean that you are unable to deal with her now. Furthermore, Hong Chang and He are helping you. However, Mu Rochuan did not immediately perk up under her mother's encouragement. She took a step back. Mother, I will go. Mu Qingya smiled gently and nodded. I knew Rochuan was the most sensible, but he might not be able to come back. Mu Rochuan's next words made Mu Qingya's expression tense. Mu Rochuan lowered her eyes and said with a cold expression, I will do my best. As for the chances of success, in my daughter's opinion, it's not even half. Eldest miss, you're belittling yourself too much. The yellow-clothed woman on the side couldn't help but sneer. Mu Rochuan glanced at her. Miss He, if you go with such an attitude, I advise you not to go. With your abilities, you won't last more than 3 minutes in her hands. He's eyes suddenly widened. Chapter 42-47. If she knows our purpose, she'll make you me, and all of us die without a burial place. Mu Qingya frowned slightly, and stared at Mu Rochuan for a long time before sighing softly. My child, are you afraid of her? Mother, I was ignorant in the past. Now, I've grown up quickly under the painful lesson. How could a God Realm cultivator, an alchemy grandmaster, and a talisman grandmaster be so easy to catch? What's more, how many experts were around that person? Did they forget? You've not grown up now. You're as timid as a mouse. He sneered again and cupped her hands at Mu Qingya. Hall Master, I'll go make preparations first. Mu Qingya nodded with a faint smile. Prepare well. Just tell Steward Kong if you need any supplies. Yes, Hall Master. He turned and left. She was very puzzled as to why the Hall Master wanted Mu Rochuan to go with them. Mu Rochuan was now a cripple. Although her body had recovered well recently, she had no spiritual power. What could she do with the team? Rochuan, you're the person I trust the most. Why would I harm you? Mu Qingya took her daughter's hand and sat down. Rochuan, I want you to use your wits, not your strength. Keep my letter well, and act according to the situation. Don't worry. With me here, even if you lose your spiritual power, you won't become a cripple. As long as you take the basic mutation liquid on time, I believe that with your talent for concealment, you'll definitely be able to comprehend an extraordinary special ability. Mu Qingya handed a bag full of medicinal liquid to her daughter, and looked at her with a gentle smile. She patted the back of her hand and said with a loving expression, Are you confident, Rochuan? Mu Rochuan faintly narrowed her eyes, and pulled her hand out of Lin Mingya's warm grasp. She said softly, If it was Long Chuyan, she would definitely not let her biological daughter, Mu Qiao, drink such a strange liquid. Mu Qingya froze and then chuckled softly. How could that be? Every mother sincerely wants the best for their children. Mu Rochuan didn't say anything else. She stood up and bowed, then turned around and walked out. Mu Qingya stared coldly at her daughter's back and said softly, Remember, capture her alive. Hall Master. An old woman with a face full of wrinkles appeared beside Mu Qingya and said in a deep voice, Miss, can we really use you like this? Ro Xian is a smart child. She knows that she has no way out now. She has no other choice but to follow our Tian Yun. Yaoan, you don't have to go this time. Let the children do it. Hall Master. I know you want to avenge your sister. What happened to Huilan was truly regrettable. She's definitely dead now that she's in Mu Qiao's hands. Mu Qingya sighed. But I want you to keep an eye on the people of the Hidden Moon Hall. This matter is very urgent. Yes, Hall Master. Zhang Yaolong gritted her teeth. This subordinate can wait for revenge. Mu Qingya nodded and smiled. If we're lucky, Rochuan should be able to capture him. Linchuan Pier. Long Qing stood in the wind in a white robe and watched the people of the Long family moving boxes of supplies onto the ship. Chapter 42-48. The Crown Princess's food, clothing, and other necessities were all purchased according to the list. It was actually very simple. The Dragon Clan's people only needed to bring a group of people to a shop designated by the little Crown Princess. Once they entered and informed them, the goods would be brought directly to the dock. It was obvious that the little Crown Princess had already informed the shopkeeper that everything was ready. They were just waiting for the Dragon Clan to pay for the goods. Long Shengyun looked at the boxes being moved onto the ship. She frowned deeply and could not help but take a deep breath. She looked at Long Huan, who was standing upright beside her. Brother, they are not here yet. The veins on Long Huan's forehead twitched. He suppressed the anger in his heart that was about to explode. Deep breaths, deep breaths, deep breaths. He could not get angry now. They were still standing in the territory of the Divine Land. He could not make the decision. After a phoenix's cry, everyone saw a green bird with long wings coming from afar. Prince Mo and the little Crown Princess stood on its back hand in hand. Their clothes fluttered in the wind. Behind them was a two-winged eagle. Mu Xingchen stood with his hands behind his back. When Long Huan's gaze fell on the little Crown Princess, he was obviously relieved. No matter what, as long as the little Crown Princess was willing to return to the Forgetfulness River, his mission would be considered completed. No matter how much trouble he had gone through, and how much he had suffered, all these could be ignored because of the little Crown Princess's arrival. Long Huan led a group of Dragon Clan members and bowed to the two from afar. Long Shengyun gritted her teeth. She followed her brother unwillingly and bowed as well. She needed to be patient now. Once they boarded the ship and left the Divine Land, they would arrive at the Forgetfulness River. Then, the little Crown Princess would not have the final say. Thinking of this, she took a deep breath and forcefully suppressed the restless and uneasy emotions in her heart. She forced out an ugly smile. Since the Crown Prince and the Crown Princess are here, let's set off. The little Crown Princess glanced in her direction but didn't say anything. The young Crown Princess didn't make a sound after she disembarked from Qing Wuan, while holding the Crown Prince's hand. From afar, a few calls of Saintess could be heard. Arbor turned his head and saw Feng Heping leading Feng Zhangqing, Feng Zhangfei, and a large group of clansmen quickly walking over. Saintess, why didn't you bring them along? Head Elder Feng Heping said with a gloomy expression. These are the 100 disciples selected by the Feng clan. Take them with you to the River of Forgetfulness. You can ask them to do something for you. Long Shengyun's face turned ugly. No. Why was this little Crown Princess so troublesome? Feng Heping turned to glare at her. Why not? Do you think our Saintess is like you? How can our Saintess not have anyone by her side to serve her when she goes out? Feng Changqing and his brother looked at the sky speechlessly. All right, it's decided then, Feng Heping said to himself. He glanced at Long Xiang, then turned to face Arbor with a bright smile. Saintess, it's getting late. Let's set off. The 2,000 disciples of the Feng clan followed behind Feng Heping. They cupped their hands and said in unison, Saintess, have a safe journey. Arbor turned to board the ship expressionlessly. Emolian left with his wife with a dark expression. The ship set off and slowly left the shore. Arbor stood on the deck with a stoic expression. She looked at Feng Heping leading a group of Feng clan members and waved at her with all her might. The end of this volume 2019. 720. Chapter 42-49. Great Holy Maiden, be careful. Great Holy Maiden, take care of yourself. Remember to come back early. The Feng clansman's chatter sounded in her ears. Although Arbor kept a straight face, she was on the verge of a mental breakdown. Originally, she didn't tell Feng Heping about this trip because she didn't want him to cause such a big commotion. But now, looking at the Feng clansmen standing in a row along the river, they waved at her enthusiastically. Sir Jojo's face was wooden. He reluctantly raised his little paw and waved it at them from afar. Prince Emo turned to look at his wife. For some reason he felt like laughing. Feng Changqing coughed lightly. He walked forward and said, "Great holy maiden. It's quite windy here. Let's go into the cabin." Arbor put down her paw and turned around. She put her hands behind her back and walked into the cabin with her back straight. Long Huan and his sister were sitting in the elegantly decorated cabin on the first floor. Seeing them enter, Long Shangyun's expression turned ugly. She had never seen such a troublesome person before. Who would bring so many guards with them when visiting someone else's home? Only this crown princess would be so troublesome. Arbor pulled Prince Emo and found 2 random seats to sit down. She asked expressionlessly, "Where is our room?" "The last room on the left on the 2nd floor. "It's your room." Long Huan's mouth twitched. "Cousin, don't worry. Everything has been arranged according to your preferences. Golden silk curtains, fine satin blankets. Even a pillow and a fine-toothed comb were of high quality. Why don't you go to heaven?" Sir Jojo replied with an, "Oh," and didn't say anything else. Long Huan rolled his eyes inwardly. He really couldn't stand the way the little crown princess talked to others. If she was happy, she would talk to you. If she wasn't happy, she would ignore you. She couldn't be bothered to talk nonsense with you. Such a strange temperament. What kind of family did he come from? "Since we have nothing better to do, why don't we play Madiao?" Long Shangyun suddenly suggested. "After we enter the sea, we still need to sail for about half a month." Long Shangyun glanced at Arbor and said, "It's quite boring to be idle every day." "All right, cousin, do you know how to play horse diao?" "I know a thing or two." The little stoic nodded his small head, looking very obedient. Emolien's lips twitched. Long Shangyun smiled and waved her hand. "It doesn't matter if you know a little. It's good that you know how to play. Don't worry, big brother and I will go easy on you." Long Huan smiled and nodded. "Cousin, we're all family. Even if we lose, we can't lose to outsiders." Soon, the mahjong table was set up. Arbor, Long Xia, and Long Shangyun sat down together. Prince Emo moved a stool over and sat beside his wife. He attentively poured her tea and fanned her. When Long Shangyun saw this scene, her mouth couldn't help but twitch. "Crown Prince, don't you want to play a few rounds?" Emolien glanced at Long Huan impatiently. "How can I win my wife's money? It was really annoying to flaunt affection all the time, okay?" Long Huan silently shut his mouth. Then he turned and said to a guard standing beside him with a sword, "Jiangsong, come and play a few rounds with us." The guard instantly looked terrified and shook his head repeatedly. "Young master, I don't have money." Long Huan. Long Shangyun was anxious to get back at him. She clapped her hands and said, "Sit down. If we lose, you don't have to pay. Big brother will naturally pay." Long Huan. Chapter 4250. The little crown princess cupped her fists at the 3 of them. "Thank you for letting me win." The 3 of them were speechless. "Let me win, my ass. The game hasn't even started yet." What's with her expression, as if she's sure to win? It's so depressing. Feng Changqing and his brother, who were standing behind the little crown princess, couldn't help but twitch their lips. They felt that the little crown princess's expression just now was strange and hilarious. "Wifey, you just have to perform normally." Crown Prince Emo fanned his wifey while peeling an orange with his slender, jade-like fingers. "Cousin, with your net worth, why don't we play a little bigger? How about 10 times the original amount?" Long Shangyun's smile was extremely radiant. Arbor nodded. "It doesn't matter. I like it when cousin is so generous." Long Shangyun smiled and complimented her, but her hands didn't slow down at all as she played a deck of cards. Arbor drew a card expressionlessly and played a card that she didn't want. Prince Emo stuffed a piece of orange into her mouth. She chewed twice, played another round, and drew a flower. Just look at her expression. It was impossible to tell whether her cards were good or bad. She was expressionless the entire time. Mu Xingchen inspected the front and back of the boat and found that there were about 100 Dragon Clan members on the boat. The boatman had been sailing the route from the River of Forgetfulness to China all year round. It was said that he had been sailing for more than 10 years and was very experienced. "You immortals! It's said that there's a transportation array that can transport you far away in a flash. right? But it can't be used at sea. The boatman's tan face showed a simple and honest smile. There's no specific direction at sea. It's not as easy to identify as on land. If you're transported wrongly, you'll probably be lost at sea forever. That's why I've sent many immortals like you. When they go to the river of forgetfulness, they'll come to us. Mu Xingchen chatted with the boatman for a long time. When he returned to the cabin, he saw his sister and Long Huan at the mahjong table. As soon as he stepped through the door, he heard his younger sister's cold voice in his ear. A one-colored 9-treasure lotus lantern. Thank you. 888,000 spirit coins per family. Thud. Mu Xingchen saw a guard fall from his stool and sit on the ground. Long Shangyun's hand, that was holding the card, trembled slightly. She put on a fake smile and said, "Cousin is really lucky." It's okay. Let cousin win a little first." Long Shangyun continued to smile. "Jiangsong, get up quickly. Don't act like you haven't seen the world. Anyway, big brother will pay you if you lose. What are you panicking for?" Long Xia felt like crying. "Jojo, have some water." Emo Lien handed a teacup to his wife. "Jojo." Sama took a sip and shuffled the deck again with the others. His movements were fluid, and it was obvious that he was not a newbie. Long Shangyun secretly gritted her teeth. Her face trembled as she said, "Cousin, you don't look like a newbie. Why do you say you know a little?" "I do know a little." Arbor nodded and said sincerely, "Not many people are willing to play with me. I've only played horse diao 5 times in my life. This is the 5th time." Everyone uffed. Feng Zhangfei couldn't help but laugh. His elder brother, Feng Changqing, glanced at him. Feng Zhangfei hurriedly stopped. If Feng Heping was here, and saw that Feng Zhangfei dared to laugh at the saintess, he would definitely use a water ladle to smash 3 big bumps on his head. Chapter 4251. Half an hour later, Long Shangyun's cold sweat dripped down from her head, and she couldn't help but fall to the ground. In such a short period of time, she lost 13 rounds in a row. The little crown princess played 13 rounds in a row, all of which were the same color, the same color, the same color, the same color, and the same color. Long Qian's face was somewhat numb as he played. The 14th round, the same color, the same color. The 15th round, the same color, the same color. The 16th round, ha 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 ha. Long Shangyun's forehead was covered in cold sweat, and she suddenly raised her hand to support her forehead. Brother, I feel a bit dizzy. I want to go rest first. Why don't you find someone else to play?" Long Qian hurriedly stood up and pretended to support his younger sister. "Shangyun, are you alright? Maybe it's because the weather is too hot. The sea will be even hotter." "We haven't even entered the sea yet," Arbor said lightly. Long Qian laughed dryly and continued. "Then Crown Princess, I'll help Shangyun back to her room to rest first. Don't you plan on leaving after paying the spirit coins?" Long Qian's back stiffened. "We played 19 rounds just now, so the total is 16872,000 spirit coins per person. Leave after paying the bill. This Crown Princess doesn't like people owing me money." Long Qian stiffly turned around and said to the young Crown Prince Consort, You. Why you? But aren't you very good at playing cards?" How could she have the face to say that she only knows a bit? The little Crown Princess had a puzzled expression. "I only know a bit." She only knew how to play cards, so how could she not know a bit? She didn't even know how to play ping hu, and she had always complained about it to her mother. Emo Lien, who was sitting on the side, was about to die from laughter. Just now, he had been sitting next to his wife and watching her play cards. It was simply a visual pleasure. His wife was like a little monster, getting whatever she wanted and getting whatever she wanted. Her 9 treasures lotus lantern seemed like a gift from the heavens, as expected of a relative of the Tendo family. Prince Emo thought to himself. Long Yen took a deep breath. All right, like a martyr, he took out several spirit coin cards from his pocket and tossed them all to Qiao Mu. There should be 51 million spirit coins in total. Arbor nodded and put the card in his pocket. He asked casually, "Are you still playing tomorrow? Play your ancestors." Long Huan left in a huff. Not only was he cursing Arbor in his heart, he was also cursing his own sister, Long Shangyun. If it wasn't for the brainless Long Shangyun, who suggested that she was bored and wanted to play with Arbor, would they have lost so miserably? Wasn't this too tragic? Long Shangyun put on a long face. Brother, I originally wanted her to lose more money to make up for the purchasing fees she cheated you out of this afternoon. Who would have thought that he would be tricked by the little crown princess again? Long Shangyun gritted her teeth. She's too good at pretending. I really thought she was a newbie who knew a thing or two. Who knew? Shut up. Long Huan angrily glared at Long Shangyun. I'm warning you. From tomorrow onwards, don't go provoking her. He could tell that every time Long Shangyun went to provoke the little crown princess, she wouldn't have a good ending. Speaking of which, it was always his sister, Long Shangyun, who suffered losses. Why couldn't this idiot learn from his mistakes? Long Shangyun had been bullied since a few days ago, and now she was being scolded by her brother, who always loved her. She couldn't help but cry. Chapter 4252. Long Qian couldn't bear to see his sister like this, so he wrapped his arms around her shoulders and comforted quietly. All right, Shangyun, Big Brother isn't blaming you. I just hope you grow some brains in the future, and don't provoke her again. We'll talk about everything after we return to the River of Forgetfulness and see Mother. Long Shangyun bit her lip and said aggrievedly while shedding tears. Mother will definitely help me deal with her. All right. Long Qian patted her shoulder. You've also been on tenterhooks for so many days. It's been hard on you. Everything is going smoothly now. Have a good rest today and don't think too much. Long Shangyun nodded. On the other side, the little stoic transferred the money in Long Qian's spirit coin card to her own spirit coin card, feeling a bit stifled. What's wrong with them? These people were all quite strange. They were the ones who challenged her to a horse fight every time, but they were also the ones who fled in defeat every time. They definitely won't be willing to continue playing with me tomorrow. Whoever plays with you will be unlucky. Feng Zhangfei couldn't help but ridicule inwardly. What should we do tomorrow? Jojo. Mu Xingchen walked toward her with a smile, holding a lively fish in his hand. Want to roast fish? The next day, when Long Qian and his sister arrived on the deck, they saw that the little stoic and the others had already eaten an extremely exquisite breakfast. She had Long Qian purchase all the ingredients and store them in ice to keep them fresh. Kaidai Veranda's products naturally wouldn't disappoint, but the kitchen maid's culinary skills were passable. However, they were currently floating on the sea, so everything could only be simplified. The stoic man's motto was to eat and use Long Qian's food. Since Long Qian was the one who invited them to the River of Forgetfulness, then he naturally had to pay for the expenses. Don't expect Sir Jojo to pay for it, humph. Long Qian couldn't help but feel his balls ache when he saw their contented appearances. What was even more painful was that the little stoic brought 100 Feng clansmen with her. Originally, she only needed to pay for a few people's meals, but now, she had to be responsible for more than 100 people originally. The ingredients they purchased were enough for all of them to eat until the River of Forgetfulness, but now, they freaking had to resupply midway. Long Qian felt a bit sorry for himself when he saw the ingredients being used up and spirit coins flowing out every day. Even if he had money, yesterday's meal had basically used up all his money. Young master, a servant of the dragon clan invited Long Qian and his sister to take a seat and served them breakfast and snacks. The little stoic, Prince Mo, Mu Xingchen, and the Feng Changqing brothers were seated at the original square table. After adding another seat for Long Huan and his sister, it became a little crowded. Long Huan smiled and said, "You are all up early. Are you not used to sleeping on the sea?" Mu Xingchen said indifferently, "It's all right. We will cross the river and enter the sea at this time tomorrow. When the time comes, the sailing speed will be faster. If the weather is good, we can enjoy the seascape along the way." Their two-story ship was exquisitely built with carved beams and jade pillars, and the rooms on the second floor had all been redecorated. Therefore, as long as they didn't encounter any particularly violent weather, even if they were to float on the sea for half a month, they would still be as comfortable as at home. "Thank you, young master," Long Mu Xingchen said politely. Long Qian said with a smile, "We're siblings, so there's no need to be so courteous." As they spoke, they heard clanking on the surface of the river. Everyone looked over and saw a skiff bobbing up and down on the river, drifting with the current. Chapter 4253. A person was sitting at the bow of the skiff with his back facing them. From the back, his white robes and long hair fluttered in the wind, making him look like an elegant young sir. The sound of a zither flowed along with the river water, approaching from afar. The little Stoic glanced curiously in that direction, her eyes revealing traces of vigilance. Which elegant young sir with a normal brain would go with the flow and play the zither in this boundless river? With such a small boat, a slightly bigger wave would immediately capsize it. What elegance could a drowned rat have? Long Huan's eyes flickered as he gazed at the back of the figure on the skiff. He said with a smile, "Truly an interesting brother. Cousin, do you think we should invite him to sit on the boat?" The little crown princess turned to look at him, revealing a treacherous expression that seemed to want to say something but hesitated. As Long Huan held his teacup, a strange thought instantly surfaced in his mind. Why did he feel like his cousin's gaze was so abnormal? Feng Zhangfei's lips twitched, and he looked at Long Huan sympathetically. He felt that with the little lady's abnormally vile and bewitching personality, this young Master Long was probably going to be in trouble again. "Cousin, there's no harm in speaking frankly. You like men." As the little lady spoke, she even shifted her stool and squeezed closer to her husband, her small hand involuntarily reaching out to protect him. Emolien Long Huan. Right now his mental activity was, "Why can't I freaking slap this little Stoic to death? What nonsense are you spouting?" Long Shangyun was enraged. "How can you slander my brother like this?" The little Stoic extended 2 fingers, drawing an arc with her gaze. "Just now, you kept looking at the man on the skiff with a strange gaze. Is it admiration?" "Everyone," Long Huan's face twitched harshly. "Cousin, you're thinking too much. I'm not interested in men." Feng Zhangfei glanced at Long Huan sympathetically. This young Master Long was truly a bit pitiful. The little Stoic glanced at Long Huan expressionlessly. She sat up straight and put down her small hand blocking her husband's path, saying coldly, "Then you want to invite him to sit on the bed?" "Pooh." Feng Zhangfei spat out a mouthful of tea. Feng Zhangqing laughed silently. He quickly took a piece of cloth and wiped his brother's sleeves. Long Qi was so angry that his finger trembled slightly. He lifted his finger to point in the little Stoic's direction, and his handsome face turned dark red. She was clearly doing it on purpose. What the hell was she talking about? Emolien was secretly amused and pursed her lips. The little guy's expressionless face was a little cute as he entertained others. The little Stoic abruptly stood up. Just as Long Huan's nerves were stretched taut, she grabbed Long Shangyun, who was beside him, and stood up. Her movements were smooth and swift as she swung her small arm and flung Long Shangyun away. "Ask your sister to invite him." Long Shangyun's eyes were round as saucers, and she was flung away by the little Stoic without warning. Her entire person flew through the air, over the ship's railing, and plummeted towards the bottom of the surging river. "Ah, Shangyun!" Long Shi jumped up and rushed to the railing to take a look. He saw that the little Stoic's throw was so precise that she directly flung his sister, Long Shangyun, onto that undulating skiff. She happened to be standing at the bow of the boat. Long Shangyun wasn't completely useless. Her body swayed left and right before she immediately steadied herself. She looked down and saw that the man in white was still playing the zither with downcast eyes, as if he was completely unaware that there was a young lady in front of him. Chapter 4254. Shangyun, come back quickly. Long Yin was very anxious. He didn't care too much and immediately shouted. Long Shangyun steadied her emotions. She stood on the bow of the boat and gently rocked along with the river. The pink dress accentuated her beautiful face. Long Shangyun held a long sword horizontally in her hand and looked at the man with vigilance. She didn't expect this man to look so handsome from the back, but when she looked at him from the front, she could only see that his mud-colored pants were tattered. When she looked closer, she could see that his hair was also tangled, as if it hadn't been washed in a long time. The man placed a guqin on his knees. Under his long sleeves, Several dark fingers were dancing. The head of the guqin had been damaged long ago, and two of its strings were broken. It looked a bit strange. In this place where the river was surging and the boundaries couldn't be seen, a young master in tattered clothes was playing a guqin that was about to break. Strange, very strange. Long Shangyun heard her brothers shout and was about to fly away from the bow. The man who had been quietly playing the guqin with his head lowered suddenly looked up. Long Shangyun exchanged a glance with him and cried out in horror. This person only had 2 empty holes left in his eyes. At this moment he was looking at her faintly. A pair of ghost hands that looked like chicken claws came out of his tattered white sleeves and suddenly attacked her. Long Shangyun was shocked, angry, and frightened. She hurriedly flew up 1/2 meter and slashed the long sword in her hand at the man's ghost claws. White light flashed. The man retracted his hand, but his movements were extremely fast. When he was in midair, he suddenly pulled the strings and played the divine song of death. The music was noisy and disturbed people's emotions. Long Shangyun's chest felt stuffy from the chaotic plucking. She couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood. It's getting more and more perfect. A second-rank special grade zombie. Arbor muttered to himself. Not only does it look no different from a human from a distance, but it also has innate talent in guqin skills. Its special music can cause people's emotions to become chaotic and their conscience to shake. Compared to the 18th sister and Wei Mingli he saw before, this zombie seemed to be much stronger. Long Huan turned his head upon hearing this and glared hatefully at Xiao Mu. You already knew that person was a zombie? Why did you? Arbor glanced at him coldly. Didn't young Master Long also want to trick us? Long, she choked on her indifferent words. Previously, he indeed had the mood of watching a joke and wanted to see the little Stoics group suffer a setback. With his experience, he was naturally able to immediately tell that the thing on the small boat was no ordinary person. Long Yun wanted to wait for the Stoic face and the others to be unable to deal with this zombie before he stepped in to help. As a result, no matter how unhappy the little Stoic was, it wouldn't be good for her to lash out at her savior. It was a pity that the Stoic face saw through her beautiful imagination. Not only did he see through it, he even tricked his younger sister, Long Shangyun. What kind of nonsense was this? He didn't want to say another word to the Stoic face. He could see that as long as he had crooked thoughts, the Stoic face might not do anything to him. But he would definitely teach his younger sister a lesson and let Shangyun continue to be unlucky. Long Yun was alarmed and furious on the inside. He hastily waved his hand and shouted, "Someone come quickly and help the second miss return." Several dozen Long clan members on the large boat exploded into action and swiftly pounced in the direction of the small boat. They stabbed their swords at the zombie that was sitting cross-legged in midair and randomly playing the guqin. Clang, clang, clang. Several guqin notes vibrated. Chapter 4255. One of the Dragon Clan clansmen was caught off guard, and his sea of consciousness was injured by the zither music. He spat out a mouthful of blood and fell into the river. In the blink of an eye, a red-eyed swordfang fish that was about 10 feet long suddenly drilled out of the river. It caught the cultivator in its mouth and chewed twice. In less than a few seconds, it had broken off a perfectly fine cultivator and swallowed him. Ah! Long Shangyun saw this scene at close range and was almost scared out of her wits. She let out a sharp scream. Long Qian heard her scream and couldn't help but feel anxious. Without caring too much, he jumped out of the boat and flew towards his sister. Long Qian rushed to Long Shangyun's side and grabbed his sister's waist. He shouted, "Concentrate your spiritual energy and attack the corpse puppet's head." Dozens of Dragon Clan clansmen reached out and touched their long swords. Their spiritual energy shone brightly. Dozens of 5 spirits' power were released from the various spirit weapons in the hands of the Dragon Clan clansmen and attacked the zither-playing corpse puppet's head. Roar! The zither-playing corpse puppet raised its 2 hollow eyes and let out a thunderous roar at the dozens of Dragon Clan clansmen. The river water suddenly became turbulent, and a whirlpool formed in the middle of the river, rolling and rotating. Long Qian shouted angrily, "Be careful of this corpse puppet. It's gathering the mutated corpse fish in the river nearby." Bang bang bang. A few figures were blown away by the corpse puppet's roar. They supported each other and stabilized their bodies with great difficulty, so they didn't fall into the river. Dozens of red-eyed sword-fang fish suddenly jumped out of the whirlpool. Each of them was about 3 meters long and half as tall as a person. They bit at the people's ankles. Rise! Rise! Long Qian shouted sharply. All the Dragon Clan clansmen's faces changed. They raised their chi and rushed up. 2 of them were a bit slower and were bitten by the red-eyed sword-fang fish. They felt a heart-wrenching pain in their ankles. Their blood flowed backward. With a scream, they were dragged into the river and eaten by the sword-fang fish. Long Qian's face was extremely ugly. He flew back a few meters with Long Shangyun and quickly dragged her back to the boat. Roar! The zither-playing corpse puppet seemed to be completely enraged. It suddenly stretched out its ghostly claw and swept the zither strings. After a few clangs, more than 10 invisible white lights attacked Long Qian and Long Shangyun from behind. Xiao Mu leaned against the railing and watched them fight with each other, her small, pale face expressionless. Long Qian could already see the ships railing in front of him, but a strong gust of wind came from behind him, preventing him from moving forward. The only thing he could do was to push his younger sister, Long Shangyun, forward. Then, he turned around and quickly activated his defensive spirit artifact to block the attacks. The zither-playing corpse puppet's cultivation had broken through to the god realm. As soon as Long Yin exchanged blows with him, he felt that something was wrong. This corpse puppet was too powerful. Even he was no match for the corpse puppet. The moment the defensive barrier was activated, it was broken by the other party. With a cracking sound, the defensive barrier in front of him was instantly shattered by the corpse puppet. Roar! The zither-playing corpse puppet seemed to have locked onto him. Its figure flashed and appeared in front of Long Huan. Its pitch-black claws grabbed at Long Huan's neck. If the corpse puppet grabbed him, his neck would be fine. Not to mention, his body would definitely be poisoned by the corpse poison. Brother! Long Shangyun rushed to the railing and shouted, "Hurry, hurry and save brother. Go and save brother." Chapter 4256. The rest of the members of the dragon family, who stayed on the ship, hurriedly jumped over the railing and rushed towards Long Qing to surround him. Long Shangyun gripped the railing tightly and screamed at Long Hua, watch out, brother! All of you be careful and protect young master." Under the combined defense of the Dragon Clan members, the zither-playing corpse puppet's attack was blocked by them. A few Dragon Clan members protected Long Hua and retreated to the ship. "Brother!" Long Shangyun jumped into Long Hua's arms and cried in shock and fright. "Are you okay, brother?" Long Hua's face was slightly pale. He shook his head slightly at his sister, and then turned to look at Arbor, who was sitting calmly at the table. Like an enraged leopard, Long Shangyun abruptly pounced in Xiao Mu's direction and swung her fist at Xiao Mu's face without any explanation. "Do you have any sense of propriety when joking? You can't play around with this kind of thing, ah." Before Long Shangyun could get close, Arbor whipped her away. "Shangyun!" Long Hua hurriedly had 2 Dragon Clan members grab Long Shangyun. The 2 Dragon Clan members supported Long Shangyun on both sides and barely steadied themselves before glaring angrily in Arbor's direction. Arbor grabbed Mu Xingchen's hand and looked in Long Shangyun's direction. He said coldly, "You want to die?" Long Shangyun's eyes were red with anger. She pointed at Arbor and said angrily, You, what kind of woman was this? Cold and heartless, heartless. The siblings had treated them to good food and drinks along the way. How many spirit coins had they spent for this woman? However, the other party didn't appreciate it at all. Just now they even threw her to the corpse puppet, causing her to almost die. Arbor snorted and turned to look at Long Hua. His eyes flashed with a demonic light. "Young Master Long, I advise you not to play tricks with me. I have 10,000 ways to make your sister beg for death. You can try them one by one." Long Hua's heart went cold. He hurriedly went forward and grabbed the furious Long Shangyun. "Cousin, you misunderstood." "I misunderstood?" Arbor glanced at the siblings as if they were idiots. "You're an expert in the sea. How could you not know whether the visitor is a human or a ghost?" Long Shangyun, I'm not joking with you. I'm Arbor and I never joke. Arbor looked coldly at Long Shangyun, who was about to go crazy, and said word by word. I wanted you to die just now, so I threw you out. Didn't your brother want to screw me over? I'll screw you over first. Let's see who dies first. You. She hurriedly grabbed Long Shangyun, who was so angry that she wanted to rush up again. Long Huan looked at Arbor deeply, and took a deep breath. It's my fault. I shouldn't have used that corpse puppet to joke with my cousin. It's good that you know. Arbor looked at him coldly, then turned and left. Long Shangyun shrieked. Where are you going? Once this woman left, Prince Mo and the others naturally followed. Were they going to let the Dragon Clan members deal with the zither-playing corpse puppet alone? Didn't they need to do anything? Long Huan grabbed his sister's hand tightly, stopping her from rushing over, and humiliating herself again. Taking a deep breath, Long Huan lowered his voice and said to the Dragon Clan members, Everyone gather and deal with the corpse puppet. Chapter 4257. Thump 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 thump. Knocking sounds came from around the ship. A few boatmen ran up sweating profusely, and hurriedly said to Long Huan, young lord, it's bad. We don't know what's at the bottom of the ship, but it's digging at the deck. If it's penetrated, the lower cabin will leak. The entire ship might not survive. Long Huan was shocked. It's the sword fang fish. In this vast water, if the ship was penetrated, they could only fly. However, it was hard to tell directions on the sea. If they flew in the wrong direction and had to start all over again, it would be troublesome. Moreover, even the strongest flying spirit beasts couldn't fly for more than 10 days without stopping. However, they couldn't stop on the water unless they encountered a small island. According to his experience, the nearest ferry would only arrive tomorrow night. If they changed ships there, if they were lucky, they could buy a ship immediately. If they were unlucky, they would have to wait. Jiangsong, take 10 people down and guard the bottom of the ship. Do your best to get rid of those sword fang fish. Yes. Ao Hai, come with me to meet the crown princess and the rest. Long Huan took a deep breath and closed his eyes tiredly. There were still so many days left on this trip. If he didn't build a good relationship with the little crown princess, the journey would be very difficult. It was also his fault. He knew that the little crown princess was someone who couldn't tolerate sand in her eyes, but he had to use the corpse puppet to test her. In the end, he went for wool and came home shorn. He almost lost his sister's life. Long Huan brought Ao Hai to the second floor of the ship and knocked on the door of the little crown princess's room. It was Mu Xingchen who opened the door. Long Huan was slightly startled and exchanged glances with Mu Xingchen. When he walked in, he saw that the Feng brothers were also drinking tea in the room. The little crown princess was sitting by the window, propping up her chin as she stared at the surging river outside. She didn't even turn her head when she heard Long Huan enter. Long Huan cupped his hands at everyone. Everyone is here. What's the matter, young Lord Long? Mo Lian raised her brows slightly and looked at the person in front of her with a half-smile. Actually, how could they not know why Long Huan was here at this time? However, he should have the attitude of asking for help. Hearing Long Huan say it personally, he felt more at ease. Long Huan was a little embarrassed, but he was a flexible person. After cupping his hands at Crown Prince Mo and the others, Long Ji explained with a smile. Your Highness the Crown Prince, everyone, the current situation is rather urgent. Mutated sword fang fish have gathered below the ship's hold outside, so we need your help. Of course, I've already sent my clansmen to clean them up. However, there are too many sword fang fish. I'm afraid they won't be able to handle it. If we can get the help of the brothers of the Phoenix clan, this matter should be easier to resolve. Also, the zither-playing corpse puppet outside. Long Huan smiled bitterly. You should have seen it just now. This corpse puppet's level is extremely high. Without your help, we wouldn't have been able to handle it. I hope. Long Huan cupped his hands awkwardly at the others. Please help me. Mu Xingchen glanced at him indifferently. Young Master Long is too polite. It's our duty. After all, we're also on this ship. It's our duty to help. However, can young Master Long guarantee that your clansmen won't backstab others? Mu Xingchen said indifferently. We don't want to have to deal with our companions behind us when we help. Chapter 4258. Long Huan's expression froze. Cousin, you're overthinking things. How could our Long clan do such a thing? That's not necessarily true, Xiaomu said apathetically. Haven't you done enough backstabbing and entrapping? Long Huan suppressed his anger and took a deep breath. He cupped his hands at Arbor. Cousin was in the wrong just now. I shouldn't have joked about the corpse puppet with Cousin. I promise I won't do it again. Arbor tilted his head and continued to support his chin, watching the river. Long Huan was a bit nervous. He thought this cousin of his didn't like him and didn't want others to help. Mu Xingchen walked out. Why are you still standing here? Why aren't you leaving? Long Huan was overjoyed and hurried to follow. He turned back and saw Feng Chongqing and Mu Xingchen following him. He couldn't help but sigh in relief. Long Huan couldn't see through the cultivation realms of these two Phoenix clansmen and Prince Mo. He had a feeling that these three people's realms were above his. Arbor watched them leave and frowned. Can Big Brother and the others handle it? A few mutated sword fang fish. What can't they handle? Mo Lian walked to his wife. There are so many people in the Phoenix clan. If they can't even handle these small sword fang fish, then just throw them away. What's the use of bringing them? They're burdensome, useless, and a waste of food. Arbor blinked and patted Prince Mo's head. You're always thinking about sending the Phoenix clan away. Too many people won't help. Mo Lian curled her lips with a disdainful expression. Soon, the two heard fierce thumping sounds from below the cabin. Looking down from the window, they could see water splashing on both sides. Suddenly, a sword fang fish jumped up and stuck close to Arbor's window, as if it wanted to jump in and bite Arbor's arm. Mo Lian didn't even lift her eyes. With a move of her finger, a cluster of black flames silently roasted over, roasting the sword fang fish into pieces in a matter of minutes. The fish have mutated. Arbor was worried. I wonder how many things have mutated in this river. Prince Mo wasn't wrong at all. Compared to the land, the situation in the sea seemed to be worse. Don't worry, Jojo. It's just natural selection. Mo Lian put his arm around his wife's shoulder and comforted her softly. Since there are mutated fish, according to the laws of heaven and earth, there will naturally be stronger species that can fight against these mutated fish. Tianyun's medicine has transformed some people into corpse puppets, but the others have comprehended special abilities. Rivers and lakes can be proved by the same principle. All living things will follow the rules. You don't have to worry too much. He was worried that his wife would worry about everything. Arbor looked up at him and nodded in amusement. I don't worry too much. I can't manage too many things. Just stay true to your heart and do your best. Don't force anything. It seems to be quieter. Let's go out and take a look. Mo Lian held her little hand, and the two walked out of the cabin together. The dim red color on the horizon was reflected in the river water, revealing a faint scarlet color. The zither-playing corpse puppet was nowhere to be seen. A dozen or so dragon clan members were cleaning up the messy deck. Several boatmen hurriedly ran up to Long Huan and shouted, "Young master, the bottom cabin is leaking." Chapter 4259. Hurry and see if it can be repaired. Long Huan was irritated and followed several boatmen to the bottom cabin. Along the way, he saw the little crown princess and Prince Mo. Long Huan paused and nodded at them. Cousin, your highness the crown prince. Water is seeping into the bottom cabin. I'll go down and take a look first. The little stoic pulled her husband to the side and made way for Long Huan to pass through. After Long Huan hastily led them down, the two people stood on the deck for a while. They gazed at the river in the distance. Under the setting sun's illumination, it appeared a bit bewitching red. Perhaps it was because of the battle just now that the nearby river was dyed red. Feng Chongqing quickly walked over. I'm afraid this ship won't last until the next dock. The ship was already in trouble before entering the sea. In the Feng clan's opinion, the Forgotten River Dragon clan's ability to handle matters was truly lacking. Where's that harp-stroking zombie? It escaped by diving into the water, Feng Chongqing replied. The little stoic uttered an "oh." Then they probably won't last until night. They'll probably be drifting on the river tonight. Feng Changqing couldn't help but twitch his mouth. He really wanted to tell the stoic girl, "We're also in the same boat right now. If others go into the water, we won't fare any better." However, when he saw the little crown princess's calm and disapproving expression, Feng Changqing decided it was better to keep his mouth shut, so as to avoid saying the wrong thing and being rebuked by the little fellow until he doubted his life. Emolian glanced at him and consciously pulled his wife closer to him. He asked with a taut face, "How's the situation with the sword-toothed fish?" "The sword-toothed fish that gathered just now have been completely cleaned up," Feng Changqing said. "I just don't know if such a big commotion will attract more mutated fish in the nearby river." "It will," the little crown princess answered him coherently. The two men couldn't help but twitch their mouths. "Inform them to prepare for battle," the little stoic said seriously. "That cultured zombie will probably come again." "Cultured zombie?" Feng Zhangqing and Emolian looked at each other and asked with their eyes. "Saint Lady, are you serious?" Prince Emo glanced at him and gave him a look that said, "Figure it out yourself." The two of them held hands and strolled back to their room to rest. They did not care whether Long Huan was badly battered by the water leak or not. When it was time for dinner, Mu Xingchen, Feng Zhangqing, and Feng Zhangfei returned. When they saw the two of them, they shook their heads and said, "The water in the lower cabin is very serious. It can't be repaired. I estimate that the ship will sink in at most an hour." Sir Jojo frowned. "What are Long Huan and the others doing?" "He's still repairing the lower deck." "Oh, then let's eat first." Xiao Mu calmly took out a lunchbox and started rummaging through it, taking out 4 to 5 plates of piping hot dishes. "Do you want some wine?" Feng Changqing and his brother stared dumbfoundedly at their holy maiden, unable to speak for a long time. At this freaking time, her holy maiden was actually asking them if they wanted to drink wine? "If you don't want to drink, then hurry up and eat." Feng Zhangfei's mouth twitched. Weren't everyone present at the god realm or above? Did they need to eat 3 meals a day like mortals? Prince Emo swept the 3 of them a glance. Feng Changqing and the other 2 sat down resignedly. "My master said that humans are made of iron and rice is made of steel. If you don't eat, you'll starve. No matter how high your cultivation is, you still have to eat." They nodded like chicks pecking at rice. Chapter 4260. Your Majesty, you're right. When Long Qian rushed in to look for them, this was the heartwarming scene he saw. He felt inexplicably sorrowful and speechless. Feng Changqing and his brother held their bowls of rice and turned to look at Long Qian. They saw that the originally handsome young master in white was now covered in dirt. A trace of sympathy rose in their hearts. The Wangchuan dragon clan seemed to be a little pitiful. "You actually still have the mood to eat here." Long Shangyun squeezed in from behind Long Qian and shouted in exasperation. Long Qian hurriedly raised his hand to grab her and quickly walked in. He cupped his hands at Arbor and the others. "Your Highness, cousin, I'm afraid this ship won't last for long. We bought a lot of supplies on the ship and need to install them. I wonder if cousin has a free storage talisman to store the supplies on the ship?" These resources were all things that they had bought with real money, especially the furnishings in the little crown princess room. The gilded copper incense burner, the gold-threaded Phoebe Jinnan wood table, and the weeping silk quilt. These had to be installed. Long Qian felt a little bitter. There was still half a month's journey before they reached Wangchuan. They had to continue living on a tight budget. The little crown princess happened to have finished eating. She glanced at him and did not make things difficult for him. She pulled her husband up silently and followed Long Qian out. When they reached the door of the cargo hold, the little crown princess took out an empty storage talisman and stored all the supplies in the cargo hold into it. Long Shangyun heaved a sigh of relief and naturally reached out her hand to the little crown princess. However, the little crown princess ignored her from beginning to end. After storing the supplies, she put the jade talisman into her inner world. Long Shangyun almost exploded on the spot. "Crown Princess, what do you mean by this? I'll give you the supplies after we change to a new ship." Xiao Mu rebuked Long Shangyun expressionlessly. "You didn't think that I would give you a storage talisman for free in addition to helping you?" May I ask where your shame is? Where's your shame? Long Qian. Long Shangyun was so angry that she couldn't speak. The experience of past tragedies told Long Shangyun that it was best not to refute the little crown princess at this time. Otherwise, she might get beaten up again. This crown princess was simply an evil little demon. She would immediately draw her sword and brandish her fists when she couldn't even finish a sentence with you. Why don't you give it a try? The little crown princess will definitely beat you up until you start doubting your life. They're baffling. The little stoic looked up at Emolien. Prince Emil laughed as he nodded. He pulled his wife's hand and walked out. Young Master Long, I hope you don't forget that we are only here to help you. It doesn't matter if you don't help. What a joke. Didn't Long Huan run in himself and ask them to use the storage talisman to collect the supplies on the ship? He had a lot of demands, and he even wanted his wife to hand over the storage talisman? It was really baffling. Long Huan smiled bitterly and cupped his hands. Yes, please continue to help me collect the goods on the ship. Don't forget about the things in your rooms. Those were all money. Long Huan's heart was very dismal. He kept feeling that he was truly lowly enough serving this young couple on this journey. Return to the river of forgetfulness. Return to the river of forgetfulness. Return to the river of forgetfulness. Everything will be fine. Long Huan reminded himself in his mind and silently swallowed his bitterness. Chapter 4261. Long Huan reached out and tightly grasped Long Shangyun's wrist, afraid that his sister would go mad from anger and not be able to hold back from making things difficult for the young crown prince consort. After a few times, the brother and sister were very clear that there seemed to be absolutely no benefit in clashing with the stoic-faced crown prince consort. Big brother. Long Shangyun was so angry that she wanted to cry. She had never seen such a vile person. Long Shangyun felt that if she continued to interact with the young crown princess like this, the latter would drive her crazy sooner or later. Why don't we go our separate ways, big brother? Long Shangyun's anger had yet to dissipate. No. Long Huan shook his head. He did want to go their separate ways from the young crown princess, since she was so difficult to get along with. However, the problem was that he had to ensure that the young crown princess would not turn back midway and reach the river of forgetfulness safely. Bear with it for a while, Shangyun. Long Huan knew that his sister had been spoiled by her family since she was young. She had suffered too much at the hands of the crown princess these few days, and his heart ached for her. However, in order to successfully complete this mission, she did not mind suffering a little. Long Huan took a deep breath and said, Your cousin has an eccentric personality and doesn't play by the rules. Just keep your distance from her. With her quiet personality, if you ignore her, she won't take the initiative to find trouble with you. Why do I have to accommodate her in everything? Long Shangyun was furious and almost flew into a rage. What cousin? I won't acknowledge her identity. I don't know how Long Chuyan raised her daughter to have such an unruly and disorderly thing. Shangyun. Long Huan hastily covered her mouth in fright and looked around with a guilty conscience. Seeing that there was no one else around, he sighed in relief. If the crown prince consort had heard those words just now, she would definitely have taught Shangyun a lesson. There was no doubt about that. All right, let's go and get ready. Later, we'll summon your flying bat. We'll rush to the nearest ferry and change boats first. But we're in such a hurry. Is it so easy to change boats? Long Huan sighed. Let's take it one step at a time. Right now, he was also extremely anxious. Truly, the road to happiness was strewn with setbacks. If he wanted to bring the crown princess back to the river of forgetfulness, why was it so difficult? After the little crown princess looted everything in the room, she followed the 100 people from the Phoenix clan to the deck. At this time, the water on the lower deck had gradually spread to the deck, and the whole hull was tilting to one side. The ship is sinking. Long Shi turned to look at his sister, Long Shangyun. Shangyun, summon the flying bats. Yes, big brother. Long Shangyun waved her hand, and an enormous bat that blended into the night appeared before everyone. Go. Long Yun waved his hand, and the Dragon Clan clansmen carried the boatman and jumped onto the back of the flying bats. Brother, come up quickly. Long Shangyun stood on the back of the flying bat and looked down at Arbor's group on the deck. She snorted. Long Huan cut open a few partitions in the cabin and quickly placed them into his inner world. If his inner world wasn't so small, he would have placed a few more partitions. Hearing Long Shangyun's voice, Long Huan agreed. He then glanced in the young crown prince consort's direction. Seeing that they were still standing motionlessly on the puddles of water on the deck, he warned with a frown. Cousin, the ship is about to topple over. You should also quickly summon your flying beasts and follow us to the nearest ferry. There's no need for you to worry. Chapter 4262. Arbor glanced indifferently at Long Shi. The latter sighed and cupped his hands toward them. Then with a leap he landed beside Long Shangyun. Clang clang. When Long Shi heard the intermittent zither sounds, his expression suddenly changed, and he urged Long Shangyun to hurry and leave. This was the sound of the zither-playing corpse puppet in the day. This fellow wouldn't be here to ambush them again in the dark and windy night, right? After a howl, a white figure pounced at the flying bat, instantly eliciting panicked screams. Long Shi shouted in a low voice. Don't panic. Activate the defensive barrier. Boom boom boom. Gusts of strong wind flowed down from the sky. In the pitch-black night, everyone could only see the streaks of light emitted by the crisscrossing sword aura. Long Shangyun shouted anxiously. Hurry, hurry and fly. Go, go. The flying bat flapped its wings, flying unsteadily. The people standing on the bat's back naturally fell as well. It was a thrilling experience. Holy lady, a phoenix clansman hurriedly said. Can you allow this subordinate to summon the flying beast? Be careful of that corpse puppet. Boom. Arbor expressionlessly raised her hand and released a black gold arrow. The arrow pierced through the air, carrying a violent gust of wind as it shot viciously toward the head of the corpse puppet pouncing down from the sky. The corpse puppet played its zither, and the zither sounds vibrated, deflecting the black gold arrow. The black gold arrow lost its aim and pierced to the side. It made a turn in the air and shot toward the corpse puppet's head again with a whoosh. This corpse puppet couldn't be so smart. After dodging the first time, it simply didn't expect the black gold arrow to make a turn. The black gold arrow hit the back of its head with a crisp clang. Arbor pulled out a vine whip with hidden barbs from her sleeve and viciously lashed it at the corpse puppet's head. With a crisp crack, the little fellow ruthlessly whipped off a large piece of rotten flesh on the zither-playing corpse puppet's head. The Phoenix clansmen surrounding the little girl all looked at the unusually valiant stoic face with shining eyes. They suddenly cheered and almost applauded. Emolian glanced at them speechlessly. Step back. This bunch of idiots. Awoo awoo awoo. The zither-playing corpse roared. Everyone felt that the boat under their feet was trembling, slowly spinning along with the river. Countless sword-fang fishes jumped out of the water and flew to the deck, wanting to bite anyone they saw. It was a pity that these little things were facing experts above the deity realm. Everyone could produce partial divine armor to protect their bodies, so it was impossible for them to be bitten by the sword-fang fish. Furthermore, the speed of everyone's attacks was extremely fast. The sword-fang fish simply couldn't get close to them. It was chopped into pieces in midair. Ascend. At Arbor's command, everyone floated into the air. Then, they saw the little girl take out several divine power balls from her inner world and throw them at the water below. Boom, 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 boom. A terrifying explosion shook the entire river, and in that instant, time seemed to stop. A deep whirlpool appeared in the river, and the countless sword-fang fishes that were torn to shreds were instantly sucked into the whirlpool. Awoo awoo awoo. The zither-playing corpse puppet didn't dare to linger, and hastily fled with its tail between its legs. Long Qian and his sister, who had already fled some distance away, and were standing on the flying bat's back in fear, couldn't help but look back. Chapter 4263. Against the backdrop of the flames, thick smoke billowed up, as if the river water had been ignited and boiled. The momentum was a little frightening. Arbor's small face was expressionless. He looked down coldly at the balls of sword-fang fish that were smashed into smithereens. His eyes revealed a trace of disdain. Despicable means, she said coldly. Then, she took out a glassy sealing ball and threw it into the surging river. Feng Zhangqing and the others were shocked by the little girl's divine power ball. At this time, seeing her throw out another thing, they all held their breaths, waiting for a huge shock. The sealing ball fell, and a 3-story ship slid out from it, instantly falling into the river. Waves surged up as the ship surged forward. My God! Feng Zhangfei couldn't help but exclaim, a ship! Scarlet firmament waves. Obviously, Feng Zhangqing's eyesight was much better than his younger brother Feng Zhangfei's. This sentence hit the nail on the head, and the group of Feng clansmen immediately opened their eyes wide, scrambling to look at the ship. Let's go! Arbor waved her hand, and everyone immediately followed the little crown princess and flew to the big ship. It's really tiring to be tossed around in the middle of the night. The little crown princess stood on the deck and turned to look at everyone expressionlessly. Everyone, wash up and go to bed early. The rooms on the 2nd floor are up to you. With that, she took her husband's slender fingers and pulled him to the 3rd floor. Leaving behind a group of curious Feng clansmen, they touched and looked around excitedly for a long time. They couldn't help but surround Feng Zhangqing and ask about the scarlet firmament waves. Early the next morning, after a night's rest, the Feng clansmen came to the deck refreshed. Only then did they realize that the sun had already risen from the east, and the morning glow sprinkled on the river water, evolving into a magnificent color. Xiao Mu and Mo Lian were currently eating breakfast with Mu Xingchen, so they greeted everyone when they saw them arrive. This scarlet firmament waves is really powerful. I didn't feel any bumps all night, I slept really well. Yeah, after a night's rest, I'm full of energy today. Not to mention that the scarlet firmament blue waves had been operating steadily for an entire night. They didn't have to worry about being attacked at all. The entire Crimson Nimbus blue wave ship was a top-grade defensive saint artifact. As long as they didn't mobilize all the corpse fish in the sea to attack, the hundreds and thousands of fish schools wouldn't pose any threat at all. Breakfast was simple, consisting of meat buns and porridge. Although no one was hungry, it seemed that after following the little crown princess, they had inexplicably developed the habit of eating 3 meals a day. Since they had nothing else to do, everyone had a bowl of porridge and 2 steamed buns to eat by themselves. It's the nearest ferry port. With this speed, we'll probably arrive at noon, the little stoic said expressionlessly to everyone. I wonder how young Master Long and the others are doing now. Feng Zhangfei took a bite of the bun and suddenly asked, by the way, did it rain last night? It rained for most of the night, but the rain wasn't heavy. However, if young Master Long and the others rode the flying bat, it probably wouldn't be very comfortable, Feng Zhangqing said faintly. Mu Xingchen couldn't help but twitch his mouth. Clan leader Feng's words were too fucking subtle. What wouldn't it be very comfortable? It would simply be extremely unlucky, alright? It was now August, and the weather was abnormally hot. The river breeze brushed their faces, but it felt stuffy and hot. Chapter 4264. Although it was only 7 in the morning, when the sun rose, heat radiated in all directions, and the temperature of the river rose a lot. The little crown princess pulled out 4 water spirit talismans from her pocket with a wooden expression. With a flip of her hand, a stream of water appeared in her palm. In a few minutes, the water condensed into ice, and a large block of ice as tall as a person fell beside her. After continuously creating 4 large blocks of ice, the little crown princess silently slapped the water spirit talismans in her hand into the ice block, keeping it in a frozen state. Then, she summoned 4 golems and had them fan themselves. Mu Xingchen's mouth twitched. Sitting beside the little crown princess, he felt a cool breeze blow over, and the stuffy feeling dissipated a lot. His sister really knew how to enjoy life. Arbor took out spirit tea from his inner world and poured a cup for his brother. Then he heard a phoenix call out, It's young Lord Long and the others. Feng Zhangqing and Feng Zhangfei hurriedly walked to the railing and looked up. In the vast river, a group of dozens of people stood on wooden planks in a somewhat disheveled state. Drifting with the waves, Mu Xingchen sipped his tea. Before he could speak, he heard Feng Zhangfei yell. Damn, they look a little miserable. How could Long Shi's group be described as miserable? After parting with the little crown princess and the others in a panic yesterday, Long Shi's group rode on the flying bat. After getting rid of the zither-playing corpse puppet and tossing that thing to Arbor and the others, Long Shi and his sister thought that they were going to start getting lucky. In the end, it started raining in the middle of the night, and the pitter-patter never stopped. They couldn't keep using their spirit power to evaporate the moisture on their bodies. If they continued to evaporate, if they encountered any danger and used up all their spirit power, they really wouldn't be able to do anything. Therefore, the group endured the rain and reluctantly took out some clothes from their inner worlds to cover their heads. In the end, after a night of torment, the flying bat couldn't take it anymore, because it was carrying hundreds of people and flying for so long without stopping. Long Shangyun could only take it back. Fortunately, young Master Long had the foresight to store many wooden planks in his inner world. Now that they were tossed out, everyone could at least stand on the wooden planks and float with the current for a short distance. They planned to wait for the flying bats to rest for a while before continuing to fly. What a tragic life. There were so many people on this trip, but only the second miss had a flying spirit beast. Long Huan also had a flying spirit artifact, but it was very small and could only carry 2 people. He didn't want to abandon his clansmen and take his sister away. He still wanted to save face. Fortunately, they weren't too far away from the ferry. At most, they would just have to float for another 4 to 6 hours. They should be able to reach the ferry before evening. He was worried about Arbor and the others. It had been a long time since the little crown princess and the others came. Long Huan was worried that the little crown princess would return to the capital in anger. Young master, look, there's a ship, there's a ship. Just as he was hesitating, a member of the dragon clan shouted. Long Shangyun's spirit was roused. She looked up and immediately waved her hand at the distant 3-story ship. Here, here. Hey, over here. Long Huan hurriedly shouted. Take off, let's fly over and take a look. Emolian raised her brows with a half-smile. Wife, they seem to have seen us. How could they not see such a big ship unless they were blind? Everyone couldn't help but grumble in their hearts. They calmly turned to look. Chapter 4265. There was a ship. A 3-story ship was right in front of them. Everyone, don't rush to be the first. Long Qian forced himself to remain calm and turned to warn Long Shangyun. Shangyun, you must remember not to be impetuous. Follow me over to take a look. After saying this, he rose into the air with everyone. As he left, Long Qian didn't forget to put away those wooden planks again in case of an emergency. Don't worry, big brother. Long Shangyun pursed her lips disapprovingly. Everyone was extremely exhausted from the bumpy journey. Now that they saw a large ship appear in front of them, their moods were naturally more agitated. Long Qian led the Forget River Dragon clan members to the side of the ship. He cupped his fists in salute and said in a clear voice, Friend, we are. His eyes landed on the little stoic at the side of the table. Long Qian and the others were instantly stupefied. Feng Zhangfei was leaning against the railing. When he saw Long Qian leading people over, he waved his hand at the Dragon Clan members with a resplendent smile. Young Master Long, I trust you have been well since we last met? Long Qian glanced at Feng Zhangfei dumbly. He opened his mouth, but couldn't speak for a long time. Long Shangyun and the others were also stupefied, as though they had been punched in the face. Yes, were their eyes playing tricks on them or what? Why did the stoic-faced crown princess and the others look so comfortable and contented? Where did this magnificent 3-story ship come from? Could it be that they had already stayed on this ship and spent the night comfortably since last night? After Long Qian's expression changed several times, he finally stabilized his emotions with great difficulty and forced out a smile that was uglier than crying at Feng Zhangfei. Young Master Feng, you guys? What is this ship? Young Master, look. There are so many mechanical people on this ship, and even the one manning the helm is a mechanical person? One of the Forget River Dragon clan members exclaimed in shock. Could it be the legendary Crimson Firmament Wave? Long Qian's eyes abruptly widened as he carefully sized up the large ship in disbelief. Long Shangyun was so shocked that she lost her voice and couldn't utter a word for a long time. Crimson Firmament Wave? The legendary sacred weapon Crimson Firmament Wave ship was actually right in front of them right now? Impossible. Could it be that you're overthinking it? Long Shangyun could not help but shout out. She would never believe that the little crown princess actually had a sacred weapon, like the Scarlet Firmament Blue Wave. Impossible. Impossible. Long Shangyun glared at the little stoic and tugged at her eldest brother's sleeve. Long Shi nodded slightly and led Long Shangyun and the remaining 70 or so clansmen towards the deck. Boom! With a flash of light, the Scarlet Firmament Blue Waves, a large-scale defensive saint artifact, let everyone witness its power. Long Huan and the others were all blocked by the light released by the red Firmament Blue Waves. They looked at each other in confusion. Cousin, can you let us come up first? Arbor looked at Long Hua with a troubled expression. The holy artifact has a spirit. If the red Firmament Blue Wave doesn't allow you to come up, there's nothing I can do. Long Shangyun's pretty face twisted slightly. Who are you trying to fool? Aren't you its master? Won't it be fine if you remove its external defense, so that it doesn't block us? Arbor blinked and glanced at her before directly refusing. What do you know? The holy artifact has a spirit, and has its own thoughts. It's not something the master can control at will. You indeed don't understand since you don't have a holy artifact. Arbor shook his head at Long Shangyun. Chapter 4266. Long Shangyun nearly vomited blood from anger. Upon seeing this, Long Qian silently pulled Long Shangyun to his side and looked at that stoic face in despair. Although this child didn't have any expression at all at this moment, Long Qian saw the word mischievous on Sir Jojo's small face. Continuing to be mischievous with a wooden face truly made people feel very helpless. Cousin, tell me, what do you want? Long Shangyun turned to look at her elder brother, Long Qian, as if she had seen a ghost. What did elder brother mean by this? Could it be that they still had to pay for a boat ride? They were truly crazy. The boat fare is 1 million spirit coins per person, Arbor said expressionlessly. The boat will arrive at the next ferry. After that, you will have to pay for a bigger boat that's more reliable. Don't let it break down after half a day at sea. At that time I'm afraid you won't be able to afford the rest of the expensive boat fare. Long Qian already knew how much of a scammer the little crown princess was, but he still underestimated how much of a scammer this stoic face was. He really wanted to cry. Cousin, can you? The little crown princess waved her hand. I'll give you a discount. There are more than 70 people here, so I'll round it off and you'll pay 70 million spirit coins. You might as well rob me. Long Shangyun couldn't resist cursing loudly. The little stoic glanced at her disdainfully. You're so poor from head to toe. What do you have for me to rob you of? This disdainful gaze and disdainful tone made Long Shangyun so angry that she wanted to vomit blood. Here. Long Qian gritted his teeth and agreed. Didn't the little crown princess like money? Then he would give her money. As long as it could improve their relationship, he wouldn't hesitate to give her more money. However, cousin, I don't have that much cash on me. Can you sign an IOU? When we return to River of Forgetfulness, I'll definitely give you the full amount. After saying this, Long Qian immediately realized that his cousin was looking at him with even more disdain. You're too poor. Arbor shook his head. His serious expression of disgust made Feng Zhangqing and the others twitch their mouths. All right then, Arbor sighed. Since we're on the same road, I can't just leave you in the lurch. Unlike you guys, you immediately fled on your flying bats the moment you saw the zombies. The Long siblings' faces alternated between green, white, and red. After the little stoic scolded them, they waved their hands and opened Qishao Songlong's defensive barrier. Long Huan and the others finally let out a sigh of relief. They quickly went through the gap in the shield and landed on the deck. After a night of torment, Long Huan and the other poor people all looked pale. They were very unlucky. Arbor looked at them and took out a brush and ink from his inner world. Young Master Long, please. Long Huan took a deep breath and quickly signed an IOU and handed it to Arbor. Then, He looked around the interior of red Nimbus blue waves. This deck was more than 3 times wider than their previous ship. Not only was it spacious, but it was also fully furnished with tables, chairs, cups, and plates. More than 100 foam clansmen sat in groups of 2s and 3s at their respective small tables, drinking tea and munching on melon seeds. Pairs of eyes looked at them curiously. Why the fuck did they look like they deserved a beating after Long Huan landed? He discovered that there were 4 ice walls erected around his cousin. There were 7 to 8 golems fanning themselves on the side. No wonder the cool breeze blew over. On the small table in front of them were tea, snacks, and a few servings of fresh-looking fruits. Long Huan felt a headache coming on, and his eyebrows couldn't help but twitch. Chapter 4267. Why does this guy look like he needs to be taught a lesson? Cousin, this scarlet firmament blue wave is? Oh, you were running too fast. I didn't have time to call you. Arbor said indifferently. This scarlet firmament blue wave was given to me by an elder in Shuntian Prefecture. I don't use it often, so I often forget about it. Xiaomu's words caused the Long siblings' chests to hurt from choking. They were sure that this guy did it on purpose. Things like not using it often and not being able to remember it were all excuses. She had purposely waited for them to leave on the flying bat before she slowly took out this sacred artifact and placed everyone inside. Long Shengyun pursed her lips and whispered, "He's just watching us make a fool of ourselves." Long Huan tugged at her sleeve, and Long Shengyun shut her mouth in embarrassment. "Young Master Long, I think you guys are tired." Mu Xingchen stood up and said, "I'll bring you guys to the rooms on the 2nd floor to rest." Long Shi immediately looked at Mu Xingchen with a wary gaze. How could they be so kind? "Don't worry, 1 million spirit coins is enough to cover food and lodging." Mu Xingchen explained and gestured for them to enter. Long Shi heaved a sigh of relief. That's right. When the little crown princess asked them for a sky-high price, she did say that the fairy fare was 1 million spirit coins. But she didn't say anything about food and lodging. Long Shi and his sister followed Mu Xingchen to the 2nd floor. Only then did they realize that there were many rooms on the 2nd floor. From the outside, the scarlet firmament blue wave looked like a 3-story ship that was slightly bigger than a normal ship. But when they got closer, they realized that the cabin seemed to stretch on endlessly. As they walked along the corridor, they seemed to have passed by dozens of rooms, but they still couldn't see the end of the cabin. As expected of a sacred weapon, Long Shi was speechless. It seemed that the space on this ship was completely different from the outside world. "Big brother, is there something wrong with the space here?" This is the sacred weapon space. It looks no different from a normal ship from the outside, but when you enter, you realize that it's a completely different world. Mu Xingchen stood still and pointed to the rooms behind. "The rooms in front are all occupied by us. You guys can do whatever you want in the back." Long Shengyun hurriedly opened the door to one of the rooms. After closing the door, she went to open another one. Mu Xingchen said faintly, "Miss Long, the furnishings in the room are exactly the same. There's no need to be picky." The reason he brought them here was to prevent them from entering the wrong room. "Thank you." Long Huan sincerely thanked Mu Xingchen. Then, he let his younger sister choose a room to enter, while he chose the one opposite. The other members of the Dragon Clan also went to choose their own rooms to wash up and rest. Mu Xingchen nodded at Long Yin. "Young Master Long, you've worked hard this time. I won't disturb you any further. If you want to eat, please come to the deck." "Thank you, cousin." Long Qi hurriedly cupped his hands and watched Mu Xingchen leave. He wasn't in a hurry to return to his room. Instead, he pushed open the door and walked in. Long Shengyun was touching everywhere with a curious look on her face. She touched the bedside table for a while, and then touched the lamp at the side. "These are all made of wood." Long Shengyun rolled onto the wooden bed and heaved a sigh of relief. Although there was no mattress or blanket, and it felt hard to sleep, at least it was sheltered from the wind and rain. The room was warm and fragrant. It was much better than sleeping outside for a night. Chapter 4268. Who knows how much effort it took to create such a sacred weapon? Long she sighed. Who would have thought that his little cousin could get her hands on such a sacred weapon? She really was not an ordinary person. Long Shangyun sat up, curled her lips and complained in a low voice. As the crown princess of the divine land, I don't believe that the divine land will shortchange her expenses. Even so, she still wanted to rob them of their spirit coins. This sacred weapon must be a treasure passed down from generation to generation. The crown prince must have given it to her to get on her good side. Long Shangyun twisted her sleeves and said angrily, "Enough. The sacred weapon has already recognized its master. Even if you get it, you can't use it." Long she did not covet the scarlet firmament wave. As the young master of the River of Forgetfulness, he grew up in the River of Forgetfulness. The River of Forgetfulness mystic realm was huge. Naturally, he knew how many treasures the River of Forgetfulness dragon clan had. Snow Ridge Sacred Ground, River of Forgetfulness Cold Valley, Sacrificial Sea Abyss. It was said that they all had extremely deep and vast mystic realms. They were on par with the Pond Lotus Sacred Realm. After so many years, the River of Forgetfulness people could only step into the outermost area of the Pond Lotus Sacred Realm. They could not even enter a little. One could imagine how many secrets were hidden there. How could there be fewer treasures? Hence, he did not need to be jealous of the sacred weapons in his cousin's hands. Because once he inherited the River of Forgetfulness, he would have as many sacred weapons as his cousin. Alright, don't think too much. Long she comforted his sister. The scarlet firmament wave is very fast. It will probably reach the harbor in 2 hours. We will make plans when we get there. Do we really have to buy another ship? Long Shangyun was angry. That woman had the scarlet firmament wave? Why would she not use such a useful sacred weapon? She even wanted her brother to buy another ship to return to the River of Forgetfulness. That was too extravagant and immature. Long she laughed bitterly. We can't afford the scarlet firmament wave. 2 hours is 1,000,000 spirit coins per person. How much do you think we have to pay to return to the River of Forgetfulness? Long Shangyun couldn't help but shudder. Such a huge expenditure was enough to buy 100 luxurious ships. The brother and sister chatted for a while, and complained about Arbor before they went to rest. Sure enough, at noon scarlet firmament blue waves sailed into the nearby port. Arbor got everyone to pack up and go ashore. He took out a sealing ball, and put the huge ship back into the sealing ball. At this time, there were many ships and pedestrians coming and going from the port. Everyone was flabbergasted by Qiao Mu's extravagant setup. After all, watching a 3-story ship being sealed by a small transparent ball was simply an act of the gods to mortals. Qiao Mu was also quite helpless when she saw this. She naturally didn't want to be so high profile. But if she took out her storage talisman, it would be even more shocking. If Long Shi and his sister saw a storage talisman that could hold such a large ship, their jaws would probably drop in shock. Cousin, Shangyun and I are going to buy a boat first. You can stroll around nearby. Arbor nodded calmly. Do as you wish. After the brother and sister left, Arbor tugged at her husband's hand. Let's find a tea house to sit for a while. Okay. This small city along the river was not big. Chapter 4269. After Sir Jojo gave a cursory glance at the trinkets for sale along the river, he lost interest in continuing to stroll around. Since that pair of siblings had gone to buy a boat, there was no point in strolling around idly here, so they might as well go to a nearby tea house. The group of more than 100 people followed behind the little crown princess and slowly walked toward the tea house. Along the way, they saw many young men and women selling along the river casting coquettish glances at the beautiful phoenix youths. A bold tea servant actually jumped up and casually threw a flower in the crown prince's direction. Crown Prince Emo dodged to the side, and the little stoic vigilantly turned her head to look back. When the smitten young girls saw her gaze as cold as a knife, they instantly shrunk back. Ridiculous! Everyone only heard the little stoic turn her head and mutter quietly, "Why are you littering?" Everyone. The corner of Mu Xingchen's eyes twitched. The group of more than 100 people followed the little stoic girl up to the second floor of the tea house. This tea house beside the small harbor was rather spacious, and they occupied more than a dozen tables, so it didn't seem especially crowded. Say, do you think Long Huan and his sister can find a good boat? I think it's unlikely. Mu Xingchen was the first to express his opinion. He shook his head and said, even we aren't familiar with this small harbor city, let alone 2 people from Forget River. Even if they can buy a boat, they'll probably be ruthlessly scammed in such a hurry. Oh! The little stoic took out a teapot of spiritual tea and handed it to her husband. Emolien naturally took it and poured a cup of tea for his wife. He casually said, if they casually buy a boat, it won't work once it enters the sea. At that time, will we still need to use the red firmament waves to ferry them? We'll ferry them if they pay. Arbor thought about it and said, is Forget River very poor? Mu Xingchen couldn't help but twitch his mouth. Why do you say that, younger sister? I think Long Huan seems very poor. Arbor looked disdainful. He's the grand young master of Forget River, yet he only has those few spirit coins in his pocket. He's also stingy and unwilling to pay with spirit stones and divine stones. Why did he have to pay on credit? I really feel sad for him. What young master? I think the streets are filled with people who are richer than him. Everyone was speechless. In this world, there were really not many who could be richer than young Lord Long. It's not that Long Yin is poor. It's just that he's been squeezed too badly by you, okay? Feng Zhangqing drank his tea silently. The corner of Feng Zhangfei's mouth twitched. A phoenix youth nodded and said, the saintess is right. That Long Huan is too petty. Feng Zhangfei. These children of the Phoenix clan had all been brainwashed by Grand Elder Feng Ping and the 2 consecrators. Now they were all calling her saintess. They had all become Lord Jojo's diehard fans. Tap tap. Waves of faint fragrance spread out. Everyone's line of sight inadvertently looked towards the stairs, only to see a group of more than 10 people slowly walking up the stairs. All of them were handsome men with red lips and white teeth. Along the way, they attracted the screams of countless infatuated young girls. Those bold tea maidens directly followed them, letting out infatuated giggles along the way. They chattered noisily in a flock of orioles and swallows. Arbor swept a glance over, but before she could make out anything, the other party already cried out in pleasant surprise. Little Stoic, it's you? The little Stoic glanced at them expressionlessly before hastily turning her head to look at her husband. As expected, her husband's handsome face had already darkened. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and purple. They were the 7 flowers that filled the air with spring. Chapter 4270. Truly, it was a small world. The little Stoic thought this in her heart, but she put on a, I'm not very familiar with you guys expression. She sat upright and still, but there wasn't a trace of a smile on her stoic face. So what if she didn't smile? In any case, everyone was already used to her expressionless face. This didn't dampen the enthusiasm of the 7 flowers to greet her. Red ran over first with a grin, and enthusiastically shook the little Stoic's hand. Stoic face, are you also going to participate in the Beauty Appreciation Conference? Without batting an eyelid, Emolien raised an arm to block the beautiful man in red's claw. The beautiful man in red felt like he had touched an iron plate, and resentfully retracted his hand. He glared at Emolien several times, before turning to continue conversing with the little Stoic. Isn't that right? What Beauty Appreciation Conference? The little Stoic originally didn't want to pay attention to this person, but out of curiosity, she still answered. LVE floated over, and glanced at Sir Jojo resentfully. Stoic, why did you run away so quickly last time at the springtime conference? I didn't even have time to talk to you. The little girl's survival instinct was extremely strong. She turned back to glance at Emolien, and immediately shifted her stool closer to her husband. I don't know what you're talking about. What springtime conference? Stop pretending. Red and LVE waved their hands at the same time. That day, you saved our Meng Meng. We didn't even have time to thank you before you jumped out the window and ran away like a rabbit. Arbor. Heh, this lord ran away. You're spouting nonsense. Cough, cough, cough. Mu Xingchen choked on his tea and stood up. Does everyone know my sister? Why don't you take a seat first? Ah, you're the stoic face's big brother. Hello, big brother. Big brother, I'm Lanning. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and purple surrounded him and started talking at once. Who's your big brother? Mo Lian's expression darkened, and his handsome face was about to explode. Humph. Meng Meng, let's sit. Ignore him. Red pulled Fan Meng and dragged a stool to sit next to the little stoic. Facial paralysis. Are you going to attend the Beauty Appreciation Conference? I'm asking you about the Beauty Appreciation Conference, Arbor asked impatiently. You don't know? Hong Yi asked curiously. The Empress of the Fallen Beauty Kingdom has invited all the beautiful men in the world to attend the Beauty Appreciation Conference. Speaking of which, the ancestor of this devastating female kingdom seems to have some relationship with your Mu clan. I don't know if you've heard that among the ancestors of your Mu clan, there's someone called Madame Qingqing? Xiaomu abruptly turned her head and gazed icily at that red-clothed man who was rambling on incessantly. Seeing that his voice was getting softer and softer, she involuntarily paused and stammered. What is it? Do you know who I am? Arbor's eyes were like water, but they were extremely cold as he stared straight at the beautiful man in red. The other party's heart was pounding, and he couldn't help but stutter again. Yes, investigate me? Arbor looked at him coldly and said in a low voice, I don't think I've ever told you who I am. During their most recent contact, she only told Fan Yu that her surname was Qiao. Someone from the heavenly fate? A blue spark suddenly jumped out of Arbor's hand. Isn't that right? What heavenly fate? The red-clothed man exclaimed in fright, and hastily hid behind Fan Meng. State your objective. Otherwise all of you will stay here. Chapter 4271. As soon as she finished speaking, the 7 flowers all started sobbing. No motive. What motive could there be? Little stoic, you're hurting our hearts too much like this. Look at us. We're all people without the strength to trust a chicken. What motive could we possibly have towards you? Wah wah wah. Wah wah wah. And here I thought we could become good friends. I didn't expect you to guard against us like this. Arbor had never seen such a scene before. A group of men surrounded her and started sobbing, looking very broken-hearted. The Duan Yu, Omega Kotoku, and Ming Yasi she encountered before, even if she dragged them around and beat them up, killed their souls with arrows, and fed them poison and medicine, they still wouldn't sob at her. Was it because the world was unpredictable? Or did she encounter a group of oddballs? The little stoic blinked as she held a sparkling blue flame, suddenly at a loss for what to do. Faced with a group of sobbing men, the little stoic expressed that what could she do? To be honest, she really didn't want to waste her breath on a matter that could be resolved with her fists. Moreover, she still had to face a group of love-struck women's accusation and contempt, plus their resentful and indignant gazes. It was as if she had done something extremely tragic to coerce these handsome young men from good families. Arbor instantly felt mentally and physically exhausted. Feng Changqing couldn't resist twitching his mouth. This was also their first time seeing a large group of handsome men sobbing. When Mu Xingchen saw the little stoic standing there stiffly, seemingly at a loss for words as she held the blue spiritual cleansing flame, he quickly jumped out to put out the fire and smooth things over. Lightly patting his sister's small hand, Mu Xingchen quickly reached out to help her extinguish the blue spiritual cleansing flame. Sister, I see that these sirs have no cultivation at all, so they shouldn't be related to the heavenly providence. Cough, cough, cough. What Mu Xingchen didn't say was, how could they be people of the heavenly providence when they looked so weak that they could be blown away by a gust of wind and run away with a kick? It didn't match their image at all. The little stoic lowered her eyes and put down her small hand, glancing at them suspiciously. She had always believed in her intuition and felt that there was something wrong with the 7 flowers. The beautiful man in red wiped his tears and said pitifully, Woo-woo, we did investigate Miss Qiao, but we only wanted to know who you were. LVE continued to whine. Yes, we just want to be friends with you. I've never thought of harming you, stoic-faced young lady. Stop crying, or I'll poison you all into mutes, Arbor said expressionlessly. Everyone was speechless. The little stoic's words put an end to the sobbing sounds everywhere. As expected, the 7 flowers didn't dare to carelessly sob in front of the little stoic. Miss Chiao, who was getting a headache from the sobbing, only relaxed when she saw that they had all shut up. With a cold expression she said, "Come here." Her little finger pointed at Fan Meng, who was being carried by Red Shirt. Fan Meng widened her watery eyes and looked at her for a few seconds. Then, she moved her feet and obediently took a few steps forward. When Arbor saw this person's pitiful expression that resembled a little white rabbit, she inexplicably felt that she had been a bit fierce to them just now. After pressing down a dictum talisman with her small hand, Xiao Mu expressionlessly warned, "Don't try anything funny." Fan Meng and the others repeatedly shook their heads, indicating that they didn't have any ill intentions toward the little lady. Although Arbor still felt that their actions were a bit suspicious, she didn't like to accuse people without evidence. Chapter 4272. Unless she could find concrete evidence, she would definitely slap them to death at that time. Before that, she didn't want to bully the weak, and didn't like to cause trouble for no reason. What sense of accomplishment was there in bullying a bunch of pitiful people? Arbor thought about it, and put away the dictum talisman for the time being. Then he glanced at Fan Meng and the others. Seeing that she didn't say anything, Hong Yi couldn't help but lean forward and ask curiously, "Miss Chiao, do you want to head to devastating female kingdom together?" Prince Emo said coldly, "We aren't on the same side as you." The Crown Prince felt that these people were even more unpleasant to the eye than the Feng tribe. The Feng tribe treated his wife with a very normal attitude. At most, their dog-like eyes would flash with adoration. However, these 7 flowers were different. When they saw his wife, they were like cats that smelled fish and swarmed toward them without any explanation. They were extremely loathsome, instigating his wife to go to that whatever female kingdom? What were their intentions? Devastating female kingdom is pretty fun. I heard that it's the place that female cultivators like to stay the most. Right. Many female cultivators with powerful cultivations are rushing to join devastating female kingdom. Why? The little stoic really wanted to continue pulling a long face, but when she saw Hong Yi's smiling face, she inexplicably answered, "Emolien." His wife was very curious. Many times, her train of thought would run away after being teased slightly. Hong Yi immediately continued to educate her in high spirits. "Don't you know, Jojo? As long as any female cultivator above the divine realm, who enters devastating female kingdom swears allegiance to the queen, they will be conferred an official position. At the same time, they will be bestowed 3 to 5 beautiful husbands." "What 3 to 5? I heard it's 7 to 8, Louis quickly added. The surrounding flowers nodded in unison. MHM. Fan Meng tugged at Hong Yi, who was rambling nonstop. "Hong Yi, don't be so rude in front of Jojo." Mu Xingqian quickly turned around to look at his brother-in-law's expression. As expected, that handsome face was already on the verge of exploding. How could these flower buds, who lacked the strength to truss a chicken, dare to crazily test Emolien's bottom line in front of him? Mu Xingqian was about to say something to smooth things over again. However, he heard the little stoic ask coldly, "What use is it?" "Huh." Hong Yi, Lu Yi, and the others didn't understand what little mushroom was talking about. "What's the use of having 3, 5, 7, 8 beauties?" The little stoic asked expressionlessly with a taut face. At this time, they were on the 2nd floor of the tea house. A large group of infatuated women, who were watching the handsome young man, were now blocking the entrance to the 2nd floor in a large circle. On the street below, the peddlers' cries and children's giggles could be heard very clearly. However, although there were over 100 people gathered in the tea room on the 2nd floor, it was completely silent at this moment. It was as if a pause button had been pressed on everyone, and everyone was suddenly mute. It wasn't just the red clothes and green clothes. They didn't know what to say to the little crown princess. Even Emolien couldn't resist twitching his mouth. He simply didn't know how to respond to his wife's question. What's the use of having 3, 5, 7, 8 beauties? What's the use? What's the use? This was a good question. Mu Xingchen couldn't resist raising his hand to cover his face. He quickly diverted this rather awkward topic. Changfei, go out and take a look. Young Master Long and the others seem to have been gone for a long time. Why haven't they returned yet? Chapter 4273. Feng Zhangfei stood up and frowned slightly when he saw the love-struck women blocking the second-floor staircase. Just as he was about to walk over, he heard Long Huan's voice from behind the stairs. What is everyone blocking here for? Long Shangyun even bluntly shouted. Move aside, all of you move aside. What are you doing? What are you looking at? Pushing aside those onlooking tea maidens, Long Shangyun walked up the stairs with her chin held high. As soon as she saw the little stoic sitting there unmoving like a mountain, she couldn't help but get angry. The boat has already been bought. It cost my brother a lot of money. We can set off after eating. Long Huan smiled at the little crown princess. Don't worry, cousin. Several boatmen have already inspected the boat and said there are no problems at all. There shouldn't be any accidents on this trip to the River of Forgetfulness. If there was an accident, they couldn't afford to ride the Crown Princess Scarlet Sky Waves. Looking at the situation, if it really didn't work, they could only mutate their merman tails first. However, it would be more troublesome than, speaking of which, after they mutated their merman tails, they couldn't return to their human forms in the short term. They would suffer a lot if they transacted with humans in their merman forms. That was why they didn't want to mutate in yesterday's situation, so they could only torment themselves along the way. Arbor uttered an "oh." There were now more than 200 people in the entire tea room on the second floor. But it fell silent again. Long Huan didn't know what to say to the Crown Princess, and just stood there in a daze for a long time. He couldn't bear this silent atmosphere and finally couldn't resist laughing dryly. Crown Princess, in a few days, it will be devastating Female Kingdom's annual Queen's birthday. It will be grand, and there will be many people attending the birthday celebration. Do you want to go? If you want to go, this older brother can accompany you on this trip. Red shirt and green shirt's eyes lit up simultaneously, wishing for nothing more than to go up and tug on the little stoic's sleeve. Small sparks flickered in their eyes. Jojo, why don't we go together? It's indeed very fun. Arbor looked meaningfully at Long Huan. The latter's hair stood on end when she looked at him. At the same time, he couldn't help but shudder. Before the little stoic could open her mouth with ill intentions, Long Huan hastily raised his hand and said, Younger cousin, stop your strange thoughts. I'm not someone who likes men. I'm not here to look at handsome men. I'm just looking at you. If you want to go and take a look, then let's go. In any case, Qingqing Womanland will also pass by when the time comes. It won't delay our journey back to the River of Forgetfulness. But if you don't want to go, then forget it. Long Shi explained quickly, causing Mu Xingchen to glance at him speechlessly. Arbor was just about to speak when he heard Qiuqiu's cute voice in his mind. Master Silver, don't reject him yet. I think the country this person is talking about might have my fragment. Arbor raised his eyebrows and used his soul consciousness to communicate. How did you know? You can sense it even though it's so far away? Master Silver, you don't know, but I've already assimilated 5 tree fragments, and am only 2 steps away from completely restoring my soul. My 5 senses can now cover a radius of 5,000 kilometers around Master. Not only have my 5 senses strengthened, but I also seem to have formed a tacit connection with the remaining 2 tree fragments. When that person said devastating female kingdom, Qiuqiu felt something stir in my heart. Chapter 4274. Master, do you understand? It's that feeling when your heart is stirred, and you feel slightly fettered, like your heart is stirred. Master, let's go take a look. Qiuqiu's ghostly howls made Arbor's head hurt. What the fuck? Stirred, do you even know how to use words? When Arbor completely returned to her senses, she saw that the surroundings were dead silent, and everyone was uniformly staring at her. Emolien raised his hand to pull her back. He raised a brow and asked softly, What's wrong? Is Qiuqiu talking to you? Sir Jojo nodded at him, and then said to Long Huan, "All right." Long Huan was momentarily at a loss. What do you mean all right? Mu Xingchen couldn't resist rolling his eyes at him. Younger sister said all right, let's just make a trip to that devastating women's kingdom. Mo Lian hastily lowered his head to look at his wife, his gaze slightly puzzled. He understood his wife very well. With her pragmatic personality, there must be something in devastating women's kingdom that attracted her. Otherwise, she wouldn't bother to join in on such a large-scale event. Arbor secretly pulled his hand over and drew the word tree on his palm. Mo Lian instantly understood and nodded slightly at her. Devastating Women's Kingdom had tree seed fragments? The group had a simple lunch and headed downstairs toward the harbor. Jojo, do you want to come and sit on our boat? Seven Flowers enthusiastically invited the little stoic. The latter glanced at them expressionlessly. No need. Then Jojo, if you run into any trouble on the way, remember to find us. We will definitely help. The group of handsome young men chattered as they bade farewell to Arbor and headed to their own boat. Lady Xiqiao raised her hand to press on her aching head, then followed Long Huan's footsteps. Women are respected in devastating Women's Kingdom. You must not act rashly when you go there. Young Master Long didn't forget to educate the Phoenix tribe members on the way. This country isn't that big. It has 3 islands and 16 fishing villages. However, the behavior of the women there is extremely valiant. This is especially true for some of the fishing villages far away from Qingqing Island. Some of the local women are uncivilized. That's why you have to be careful when you go there. Remember to cover your faces. As Long Huan spoke, he took out a black cloth from his inner world and handed it to his subordinate to distribute to everyone. When the time comes, everyone has to be blindfolded. Except for women. Why? Arbor asked in confusion. Long Shengyun couldn't help but sneer. I've already said that the women of devastating beauty country are the most respected. Pretty boys like them. Long Shengyun pointed at Feng Zhangqing and the others. She crossed her arms and snorted. Walking on the street, it's easy to be robbed. Arbor was furious. Who dares? The phoenixes nodded repeatedly and said, we will only serve the Saintess for the rest of our lives. We swear that we will never obey anyone else. Arbor. Strange, her husband's face darkened even more. She really wanted to turn back and tell the phoenixes, you can't listen to Feng Heping. Don't be brainwashed by Feng Heping and the 2 high consecrators. However, Mo Lian was very angry. She grabbed her little hand and pulled her away without another word. Sigh. A man's heart is like a needle at the bottom of the sea. It seems that Sir Jojo needs to comfort him. When will her husband grow up? It's so worrying. I'm sleepy. I'll catch up on my sleep tomorrow. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.